The girl thought that it seemed to her that she had fallen asleep, and at that time she became interested in where she was and what had happened, and the last image that emerged in Halit's mind was that he had come to the negotiating room to discuss further strategies. And right after finishing, he said that he missed her and was going to hug the girl. The young lady understands that such behavior is not uncommon, but this time she realized that something was wrong. At the moment when the main character opened her arms for a hug, he plunged a knife into her stomach. The girl touched her stomach and realized that there was no wound left, and she was surprised by this, and then thought that this boy just pretended that he intended to finish her off. She considers Khalit a snotty boy who couldn't even kill her. The main character thinks that he must have done this to save her and deliberately pretended to have finished with her and then transferred her here. When the young lady looked at the room, she thought that this was some aristocrat's mansion, because everything there was very exquisite, and she could not believe that someone lived in such luxury while a war was suddenly raging. The little girl understands that first she needs to get out of there and find out about everything that happened, because she thinks that Khalit did this on his own whim. The girl wanted to get out of bed, but suddenly she fell and did not understand what was happening to her body at all, and when she saw herself in the mirror, she was surprised because she immediately realized that this was not her face, and she did not understand how something like this could happen and why. The maid enters the room and asks the lady for forgiveness, and then explains that she did not know that the mistress was awake. The main character grabs the maid and screams, asking where she is now, and offers to tell her everything she knows, and then figures out what they did to her. The lady screaming asks where Khalit is, and the maid is surprised because she doesn't know what the miss is talking about. The girl screaming calls out the name Khalit Gabrain. The maid explains that she doesn't know anyone with that name, and then says that there was an accident, after which she slept for 3 days and only woke up now. Hearing this, the main character thought that she needed information and then asked where she was. The maid explained that she was in the master's mansion in Yansgar. Miss Surprised asks who this gentleman is. The maid asks for forgiveness and then says that he is her father, His Excellency Count Aiden. Hearing this, the girl thought that she doesn't have a father, or rather she has no idea who he is since she has never met him, and she can't imagine how this can happen. And then she asks, "What about the war?" The maid looked at her mistress in surprise, and then said that it was really hard for her to understand the course of her thoughts, because the war had ended 3 years ago, and the kingdom of Olsha had been destroyed. The main character, when she heard this, was surprised because her homeland was her country, which she intended to defend until her last breath, and at that time she felt ill and fell to the floor. The man thought that he was a damn old man, and he, having returned from a difficult battle, was forced to deal with such nonsense since he had to drop everything and come here. And yet, even before his departure, he had suspected something strange. The servant greets Mr. Zedekiah, and he angrily asks where it is. The man replies that it is in the office. The gentleman says that no matter how many times he reads it, it is still complete nonsense, and then asks if that is not true. A will on which not 1 but 3 seals of the pontiff are placed, and a person who does not follow such a decree may not only lose his position, but also his estate in the register of citizenship of the empire. Zedekiah read it carefully and said that of all the possible options, the will stated that he should marry the daughter of Count Rusifella Aiden, who had long, alluring hair the color of the night sky, snow-white skin and eyes shining like stars, and she is so beautiful that she is rightfully called the Ishtar of Yansgara. The young gentleman believes that, in fact, she is a very spoiled person because she is famous for her terrible character, and in addition, there were rumors about her affair with His Highness the Crown Prince. Bonad says that he heard that the prince abandoned her, which is why the girl tried to commit suicide by throwing herself into the lake near the imperial palace. Zedekiah says how carefree her life is, and then asks her father if he wants him to marry such a man. During the conquest of Olshi, Estelle led the 3rd detachment of the Knightly Order of the Sitor. Even though she was not a man, she took up a sword, and due to her audacity and cruelty alone, rose to the rank of commander. The Olshi people called her Venus Ishtar. The girl was prone to making irrational conclusions, which ultimately led to the knight stubbornly insisting on a senseless fight with the enemy. for which she was subsequently finished off by an officer who could not stand it any longer and then capitulated, presenting her head to the Yansgar. This day became the last for the kingdom of Olsha. When the main character read this information, she threw the book down and screamed, telling them not to rush it because she thought it was nonsense, because the girl was prone to making rational conclusions, and this was an attempt to preserve the greatness of Olsha until her last day. The young lady does not understand what kind of knight defends his country in their opinion irrationally, and believes that if she had a sword in her hands, she would immediately grab by the throat the man who dared to write this nonsense. The maid looked at her mistress and then screamed, saying that she might fall again and that she would call the doctor and return quickly. The main character lying in bed thought that she, Rusafella Aiden, was not the owner of this body. The only daughter of one of the aristocrats of Yansgar, Count Ribos. When she was 9 years old, the girl lost her mother, and she and her father were left alone, and recently she threw herself into the lake, because of which she was on the verge of life and death for 3 days. The father turns to his daughter and claims that everything is fine because he is nearby, but at this time the girl thought that nothing was fine, and quietly says that she should go to Olsha. The count, surprised, asks what she is talking about and where she is going to go, and then asks her not to leave him alone. The young lady looked at the man in surprise and asked who he was. The father took her hand and asked if she remembered her dad. At this time, the girl does not understand how this is possible, because he looks at her with eyes filled with warmth and love, and she wondered if this is because he is blood related to the owner of this body. The father cries and asks his daughter not to leave him alone, because she is the only one he has left. The butler turns to the count and informs him that there is a meeting in the palace, and he has been called several times. The gentleman says that to hell with the meeting when his daughter is so ill. At this time, the main character thought about what could be the meaning of life for this person who is in front of her, the owner of this body of Rusafella, and which for her were his sword and order, and she believes that the feeling of betrayal and hatred belong only to Estelle because it is impossible for this body to suffer and be in danger because of her anger. Miss believes that she must find out what happened to the kingdom of Olsha 3 years later, and what happened to the survivors, Liam Walter, Anika, Eugen, and Halit, and therefore decides to live as Rusafella Aiden for this purpose. Estelle says that they will become stars in the night sky. Hearing this, the knight says that if he becomes a star, he does not want to shine near the commander, and then says that she is one of those who, without thinking, went to the Milky Way in the coldest winter. The commander asks what he said, and then says that he will bury him in the nearest river before he gets there. The knight asks if the commander of the order can say that, and also wonders if he is some kind of bandit. The woman pulled out a knife and then said that if Liam said one more word, she would finish him off first. The main character thought that her previous life was full of fierce battles, and she heard only the endless clanging of swords on the battlefield time, and again announcing the continuation of someone's life or its loss. The maid turns to the mistress and asks her to forgive her because she dropped tea on the saucer. The young lady looked at the saucer in surprise, and at that moment, the maid fell to the floor and asked to forgive her and also to have mercy and not to beat her. Hearing this, the girl was surprised because she understands that in this body she can hardly hold a cup of tea, and then asks in surprise if she beat her. The maid tremblingly replies that it was not a beating, but merely a deserved punishment that she had to bear. Having heard this, Miss does not understand what the owner of this body was doing. The father asks his daughter if she is up yet and how she is feeling, and also asks if she feels better. She assures that everything is fine, and at this time he realized that she does not immediately notice when he speaks in his usual politeness. The count thinks that she really has gotten much better, and then says that he didn't come here empty-handed today, and then shows her the earrings and asks how she is doing, since he brought the best example from the last batch, and then offers to say if she wanted anything else. The girl thought about what she had heard, that Count Aiden also had a small birthplace of precious stones in his possessions, and in any case she couldn't even imagine how much it cost. So she took the box and thanked him. The father says that he cannot yet tell her the exact date of the banquet, but his hands should definitely outshine everyone there, and then he claims that she is of course beautiful, even without all these decorations. The young lady was surprised when she heard the word banquet, and the Count said that he had more good news for her and said that she had a fiance and a proposal from the Duke of Haint. The father believes that she knows him because the eldest duke recently left their world and the son immediately inherited it, and the new head of the family announced that he would soon visit them. Hearing this, the main character thought that Zedekiah Hint, she knew this name very well. During the military actions in Poland, he destroyed everything he touched on his way, and he was also called the Black Lion of War, Zedekiah. The little girl understands that she had met this guy when she was still in her body, and she became interested in why he is now her fiancé. However, she believes that she is once again convinced that she has encountered a completely new reality for her, because now she is the beloved daughter of the Count of Yansagar. The father says that he really expected this, and the daughter asks in surprise what he is talking about. The Count explains that there is nothing, and now she can finally forget about what connected them with the Crown Prince. The gentleman says that now it is time for him to go because he has a lot of things to do, and the young lady does not understand why he has such a reaction and thinks that he is avoiding a conversation on this topic. She thinks that the owner of this body had an affair with the Crown Prince, and therefore she is a problematic person. The maid informs the young lady that the Duke of Hint will arrive very soon, and she will help them prepare. The miss turns to the maid and apologizes, then states that she thinks she has combed her hair enough. The maid replies in surprise that she hasn't even finished half of what is usually done to her hair. At this time, the main character does not understand why they force a sick person to preen so diligently, and she does not know whether there will be a banquet or a party, and does not even know how she will endure all this in the future. The little girl understands that she has only made a couple of movements and her strength is already running out, and assumes that if she were in her previous body, she would have no problem conducting intensive fencing training, but even if she were not, she would feel better if she could resume these activities. Ruchi has the feeling that this girl is destined to spend her life as a soulless doll, deprived of health and incapable of anything, so helplessly lying on the bed, powdering her face, exhausted from illness, and patiently waiting for the Duke. The maid informs the young mistress that they are finished and therefore suggests that she move so that her hair does not get disheveled. The young lady asks in surprise whether she should still be sick and worry about her hair. When a man entered the room, the main character realized that he was Zedekiah Hint and believed that he was definitely not deprived of his appearance, but she only sees in him the leader of the enemy army, and this is a problem. The gentleman turns to the lady and says that he was unable to visit her a little earlier, at which time the girl thought that she wanted to grab him by the throat, and at that time she replies that she is sorry that he had to visit her. Ruchi understands that this is enough, because just looking at his face is unbearable. Since he visited her, this should be enough and she would like him to disappear. Zedekiah looked at the lady and said that they both hate this engagement, but her behavior spoils his mood. Hearing this, the little girl thinks that she should have said these words. The man says that she even put on makeup and then asks if she is pretending to be sick. The lady asks in surprise if she is already on first-name terms with him. He smiles and says that he is the only one who is ready to pick someone like her, and then asks if there is anyone else willing to marry her. Zedekiah says that he thinks that he will be able to tolerate the fact of her affair with the Crown Prince, but if she cannot forget her past and continues to get on his nerves, then he will not be so lenient with her. The gentleman says that he doesn't like her either. Hearing this, the girl thought that it was of course good that he didn't sense anything strange in her worthless imitation of the lady, but he was seriously convinced that this was a consequence of Ruchi's feelings for the prince that hadn't yet cooled down. The little girl thinks that they have some misunderstandings, but his words are already a clear insult. She says that since the current situation is not to their liking, she wonders if they cannot get married at all or get divorced immediately after the wedding. The guy says that she is right because he likes the idea of postponing the wedding and the subsequent divorce, and therefore suggests that she do so because he is not eager to spend the rest of his life with someone like her. Rusifella says that it is wonderful, and at that time she thought that she heard that this engagement was approved by the church, so it cannot be cancelled, but she thinks that it would be great if he could postpone the ceremony. The main character believes that it is better to die than to marry him, especially in this body that is unfamiliar to her. Zedekiah tells the girl that if her stupidity with jumping into the lake happens again, she better be prepared for the worst. He suggests that next time it would be better to jump straight from the tower of the imperial palace. Hearing this, the young lady understands that everything is as she thought. This man is disgusting. The gentleman being in the imperial palace of Jansgard does not understand why of all people it is he. The silver-haired boy approaches Duke Haint and tells him that he is glad to see him in good health. The gentleman says that every time they meet, he sees his face and his mood instantly evaporates, and therefore he thinks that it would be a good idea if he got away from here. Luerk smiled and said that unfortunately this was impossible because their destination was in the same direction, and then asked if he was heading to an audience with His Majesty, and said that he was going there too. Zedekiah knows that the Duke is Luerk, and his very appearance irritates him, but one can even say that he is disgusted by him, and all because he has sarcasm that is irritating, because he behaves like a typical aristocrat. Luerk says that he heard that the master is engaged, and then asks if it is true that his bride is the famous daughter of Count Iden, who is also known as the Venus of Jansgar, and then he says that he once managed to look at her from afar, and believes that she is truly so beautiful that even His Highness the Crown Prince at some point succumbed to her charms. The gentleman says that he is sure that the Count's daughter was glad to see him and therefore hopes that he did not disappoint her, because he heard that she feels very well, and this is a big problem. Zedekiah reports that he clearly feels much more affection for His Highness than Count Aiden's daughter. Luerk says that he may be misunderstood if heard, and then claims that he is a loyal servant only to His Majesty the Emperor. The Duke understands that this guy is cunning and treacherous, and even when he tried to hurt the Luerk by declaring his strong connection with the Crown Prince, he remained completely unperturbed. But it is worth noting that his bride is much more suspicious than he assumed. Zedekiah realizes that, after that incident, she doesn't seem like such a suitable candidate for a bride, because not only was this girl not happy about her engagement to him, but she also reacted as if because of him, she couldn't connect her life with the Crown Prince, and as if she wanted to say something like that. The gentleman believes that, in addition, it seems that Lady Rusifella feels the same disgust towards him as towards Duke Luerk. However, he does not understand why, because even if they have already met, he does not remember anything that could cause such hostility. Zedekiah reflects that when he sent the proposal of engagement, he was extremely polite, and the Count gave his answer without delay, as if he was very happy about it. However, he understands that he was confused then, so he did not cancel it right away, but even her manner of speech was more like a soldier's, and he thinks that maybe she went crazy because of the shock after that incident. The Duke thought that he thinks she just lacks upbringing. When the men came to the Emperor, they bowed their heads and greeted His Majesty. The Emperor bids them rise and then asks why his men continue to die. The men did not answer, and His Majesty, screaming, repeated the question of why his people were dying so insignificantly. Count Hint realized that he was furious because he had skipped the welcoming part and came straight to the point, and believed that it was probably because of this, since the capital of Jansgar had recently been. Greenhill is shocked by a series of murders by a butcher, and he chooses exclusively women as his victims, paying no attention to their social status. A cold-blooded serial killer who has terrified the entire Greenhill, the capital which had barely found a fragile peace after the end of the war with Olsha, was again thrown into chaos by this bastard, and he understands why Duke Luerk is here. Well, if even he was called who is responsible for the military power of the state and not for internal affairs, and this gives him a bad feeling. The Emperor turns to the commander of the First Order and the commander of the Second Order, and then states that they know perfectly well what needs to be done, and therefore he gives them 3 days and they must capture this murderer for him. The maid turns to the mistress and asks her to stop, but she objects and says that she will take one more step. The maid says she will feel sick if she continues such intense training, and the lady asks what nonsense, because it was only 1 lap around the garden. The girl thought that it was one thing to say, but she didn't run, she just walked quickly. But she understood that it was still hard for her, because she didn't know how it was possible to dress up, put on makeup, and attend all these meetings and banquets in such a deplorable state. The maid offers her mistress a drink of water and asks her to allow her to wipe away her sweat, and also offers to use an umbrella from the sun. The young lady wonders who will be training with the umbrella and then assures that she is fine. The maid looked at her mistress so sadly that she even agreed, and they went for a walk again. but this time with an umbrella. Other maids observing the mistress say that she often lost her temper and punished them for the slightest mistakes, and know that it was so difficult despite the fact that the lady is still quite stubborn and her character has clearly softened. The maid says that she doesn't know if this was the reason, but even the atmosphere in the house became somehow warmer, and the other maid agrees with her and claims that this is their lady, and she has always been kind, and even her awkwardness is so cute, and asks if she is right. The main character understands that several days have already passed since the beginning of her new life under the name of Rusifella, and she justifies most of her actions by the loss of her memory, and even if she behaves completely differently from the former owner of this body, they happily accept all the changes, and it seems to her that everyone is gradually getting used to the new mistress. Loija tells the lady that the Count sent her a gift and that this is what she asked him for last time, and then says that this knife suits her very well. At this time, Miss thought that she asked for a sword and received some kind of toy dagger, and what's more, because of the very heavy sheath it is pulled out with difficulty, but she understands what is. Rushi reflects on the fact that the sharp shining blades stored in luxurious knives are similar to her. The girl asks how much these tomatoes cost, and the seller says that if she buys more, he will give her a discount, and says that the streets have been very restless in recent days, and therefore asks her to return home early. On the way home, the girl eats tomatoes and thinks that they are very tasty, because today is definitely a nice day, and she will eat some of them for dinner and make jam from the remaining tomatoes. However, the young lady was not destined to reach home because she was met by a butcher who plunged the girl into eternal sleep. When Duke Hint came to the crime scene, he thought that it was just a nightmare and believed that this bastard was wielding a knife again. Duke Lewerk reports that this is already the 7th victim and then asks if this is not horrifying. Zedekiah says he asked for a military doctor and then asks why he is here. Lewerk replies that he doesn't know what's going on with calling a doctor, but the same reason that brought him here, and reminds him that His Majesty the Emperor ordered the two of them to take care of this matter, and asks if he's forgotten already. The fair-haired gentleman asks if he knew anything, and the Duke replies that it's nothing special because he thinks that this is the same psycho who commits his murders near the road strip and considers this to be the highest degree of impudence. The gentleman, being at the headquarters of the Knightly Order, says that the 7th corpse was found in a crowded place not far from the market, and by that time it was already getting dark. The victim is an unemployed, ordinary housewife based on the information that they have at the moment. Except for age, she has nothing in common with the previous cases, and her place of residence also does not match. The Duke asks about the witnesses. The man replies that the statement has not yet been received, and it seems that this time they are not accused. And once again, there are no signs of self-defense on the body, and it was established that the killer attacked from behind. The gentleman thinks that it looks like only the first victim resisted. He knows that this killer kills everyone in a row, moves chaotically, and in addition acts in crowded places, but there are still no witnesses, and he cannot figure him out. Zedekiah reflects that however one detail is known for sure because the time interval between the murders is getting shorter and shorter, and he wonders whether the information department has started an investigation. The detective says they noticed that the criminal was appearing in a variety of places, so they assumed he might be a guide. The gentleman suggests that the first thing to do is to collect all the records of the guide's last movements, and then make a list of those who do not have an alibi and immediately report to him. The knight tells the Duke that they have received information that Liam Herka was seen at the crime scene. The gentleman is surprised to hear this and says that if it really is Liam Herka, he wonders if the survivors from Olshi are involved. The man says that all members of the Second Order have set out to capture him, and Lewerk believes that the matter is taking a serious turn since these are no longer serial murders, but real terror. The silver-haired Duke says that the situation is not so desperate since they were able to quickly identify the criminal. He thinks that there seems to have been collusion here, and this fits well with the crime since it immediately becomes clear how they managed to kill in completely different places. Lewerk says that the red butcher writing on the wall may be a metaphor for how Liam wanted to convey his feelings as a former knight of Olshi. Zedekiah wonders if he really thinks that Liam Herka is a criminal, and Lewerk asks now that he has shown up, does he think it is someone else? After the war, Olsha became the Waltz state of Yansgar. Most of the feudal lords gladly submitted to the emperor in return for his loyalty to them. Perhaps at this point, for Liam Herka, they became traitors to their homeland, and these serial murders carry a warning for traitors. Luerk says that his version of events is the best possible and asks if he still stands his ground. Zedekiah replies that his decisions are still no good and that all he can do is talk, and thinks about the fact that he himself is nothing more than a shameless coward. The fair-haired gentleman asks what he is thinking about and then says that if he does not hurry, he will miss the opportunity to become famous, and thinks that his guys from the Second Order are pretty good. The Duke agrees with him and says that they are capable knights. Luerk says that he will take his leave and invites the Duke to see him later. The assistant turns to the gentleman and asks if it is time for them to leave too. Hint reflects on the feeling that something doesn't add up here. The main character looked out the window and became curious about why it was so busy outside. The maid says that she just heard about it from the coachman and that there is now an investigation into serial murders, and that is where all the commotion is coming from. Loija explains that recently a series of crimes took place in the capital and the victims were exclusively women, and in any case the order found out who was behind it, so the situation will quickly settle down. The maid says that the knight is already actively searching for a serial killer responsible for so many deaths, or more precisely, they are looking for a ruthless killer named Liam Herka. Hearing this, the lady was surprised and asked if she said Liam, and also if this was somehow connected with Olsha. Loija reports that they say that these murders are the work of survivors from there, because they say that they still naively believe that they can return independence to their kingdom, and in their attempts they go to such extreme measures. The main character says that this is a serious problem, and then asks if Liam was seen anywhere before this incident. The maid says that she remembered the collapse of the bell tower in Payband County. The maid explains that now, during the investigation of serial murders, it suddenly turned out that this man was singled out here in the capital, and he only killed innocent women, and therefore considers the soldiers from Olsha disgusting. Lawyer looked at the lady and asked if she was feeling bad because she looked at her and realized that something had happened. At this time, Ruchi reflects on the fact that she was guided only by what happened just before her death because she thought that she was deceived by absolutely everyone, but only one Khalit betrayed her, and she instantly stopped trusting the rest of her subordinates. The maid asks for forgiveness because she thinks that she shouldn't have said too much, and the mistress must have been very scared, and all the knights of the capital are now pursuing Leon, and therefore assumes that he will be caught very soon. Loija understands that the miss looks bad and says that this will not do, and asks her to wait a little because they will immediately return to the mansion and she will ask to turn the carriage around. The lady objects and says that there is no need to do this because she just felt a little dizzy and therefore suggests not to worry. The main character thinks that if Liam Herka is in this city, then she must definitely meet him, and if it really is Liam, then he will probably recognize her, and then perhaps she will be able to meet with the rest of her former subordinates. Rusafella tells the maid that she wants to do something, and at that time she thought that she needs to find him first, before he is captured by the knights of Yangsgar. Miss suggests the maid to exchange their clothes and have some fun. Hearing this, the lodger says that she really can't do that, and the lady asks, why isn't this just a clothes fitting? Rusi says that in her dress the maid looks like a beautiful lady and suggests looking in the mirror because she thinks that now she is truly magnificent. Loya looked at herself in the mirror and said that she would never forget today in her life, and then she would thank the lady. And the lady suggests that she not worry about it anymore and wait a little because now they will also find jewelry worthy of her. At this time, the main character thought that she was so grateful to her, but she was even more grateful to the maid. The maid turns to the lady and says that she has thought about it, and it seems to her that decorations would be unnecessary, but she sees that the lady has already left. When the girl went outside, she heard rumors that they were saying that it was Liam because another corpse was found yesterday and right next to the road, but apparently he specifically wants to put everything on display, and the residents think that it is probably that freak from Olsha. The man says that there may be several criminals, which is why the attacks are being carried out in different places, and he heard that the killer was identified in the northwest of the capital and therefore hopes that he will not get to them. Rusi thought that she doesn't know for sure whether Liam destroyed that bell tower, but such grandiose actions are definitely in his style. But she thinks that mass murders of women cannot be like that. The girl reflects on the fact that she still remembers very well how much he blushed in front of girls and children. The young lady thinks that in order to start acting, she first needs money, and she saw a shop and thought that this is what she needed now. The salesman asks the lady what she wanted. Meanwhile, the girl realizes that this is a small shop with no employees run by only one person, and therefore thinks that there is no need to worry about revealing her identity. The lady says that naturally she came to sell him the thing, and then shows him Sergei and says that she wants to sell it to him. The man says in surprise that these earrings are handmade with large diamonds, and therefore suggests that she wait because he needs to evaluate them. The girl turns to the owner and asks what the name of this market is because she can't remember it at all. He replies that it's the Casca market, and a few minutes later he says that everything is ready and asks if the bill he wrote out will suit her. Rusifella objects and says that it would be better if he gave her the entire amount in cash, since she wants to buy one more thing and asks how much it will cost. The salesman asks her in surprise if she is sure because she doesn't understand that a girl like her needs something like that. The girl bought what she needed and then thanked her and left. The main character checked the map. The Casca market is in the southeast of the capital and Liam was seen in the northwest, which means she needs to move in the opposite direction. Rusi understands that there is a road here, so it is stupid to go on foot, but if she takes a horse, she will certainly attract unnecessary attention to herself, and she decided to hire a personal carriage. The girl approached the coachman and asked if he could take her to the northwest. She thought that it was great because she would get there that way, and there she would ask where they had seen Liam. The man asks in surprise if she doesn't know what's going on in this area now, and says that he won't go now because it's too dangerous. The young lady understands that this is Sambo with herself, because who in their right mind would agree to go now to a place where a malicious killer is operating in full swing, and she realized that she would have to buy a horse. Suddenly, another coachman asks the lady where she wants to go. The girl replies that she needs to go to the northwest, and upon arrival, he can drop her off anywhere. The man is surprised, and she says that she definitely has to get there, and if he agrees, she is ready to pay him extra for this trip. The main character understands that she can't delay any longer because time is running out, and the coachman asks about a triple rate, and the lady agrees. The assistant asks the commander why he continues to stare at the corpse he has already examined. At this time, Hint is thinking about the fact that he does not understand what the problem is, because from the moment he first saw the crime scene, and to this day, he has not left the feeling that something is wrong. The knight tells the commander that they don't have time for this because there is less than a day left until the deadline set by His Majesty. He understands that if they continue in the same spirit, the Second Order will take all the credit. The gentleman claims that their task is to arrest the criminal and then asks or competition for rewards. Hearing this, the assistant did not know what to answer. Zedekiah reflects that now, and during the war, it is still hard to look at the corpses of women, and during the time when he watched the destruction of the kingdom of Olsha, the feelings were the same, and he especially remembers the head of that girl. The Duke turns to the officer and reminds him that he said that the cause of death of the last victim was a stab wound in the back, and asks if this is true. He replies that this is true, and he stabbed her several times from behind with a knife, after which the girl died from the loss of red liquid, and according to their knights in training, the wound was so badly torn that it was hard to look at her. Hearing this, Zedekiah thought that now he understood what this strange feeling was. The officer informs the commander that Count Aiden has arrived to see him. The Duke is surprised and asks why he is coming here at such a time. The gentleman was informed that she had run away dressed as a maid, and at such a time he thought that it was simply senseless. The Duke reflects on the fact that he finally has a lead leading to this bastard, but he realizes that it may suddenly turn out that he needs to focus on finding this girl, and thinks that this is a waste of time. Zedekiah asks if there is any idea where she might be headed. The Count replies that he has no suggestions, and he cries and begs her to help him, and then says that recently she has become positively radiant with energy, and has even started doing sports, and does not understand why, all of a sudden, the gentleman asks to find his daughter because he understands that she could get into trouble. Zedekiah suggests to the Duke not to worry because their people are everywhere, so nothing terrible should happen, and then orders the knights to join the guard and help them find Milady Aidan. Hint reflects on the fact that, according to the Count, his daughter disappeared without taking anything with her and having practically no money, and the likelihood that she was going to go somewhere and needed a personal crew is very high. The man understands that if his assumptions are correct, then it is only possible that in such a big city she will choose his carriage, but he understands that he needs to hurry with the investigation. The officer says that he brought the materials that he requested and then reports that among all the cabbies that work in the capital, not first of all they saw the owners of several carriages. At this time, the coachman is thinking about how everything worked out well because at first all his crimes were pinned on that blockhead from Olshi Liam Herku. Now he has come across a girl heading to the northwest where no one wants to go now. The man thought that he was grateful to fate because she was quite beautiful, and he became interested in how delightful her face pale with fear would be. The maniac is thinking that maybe this time it would be worth exhibiting his creation near the square. The driver remembered that the girl had told him to look at the fruit because the cart was shaking so much that the apples were broken, and then she asked him how he even controlled the horses and that he wanted money for such a trip and thought it was just ridiculous. The man claims that the lady must pay anyway and then grabs her hand. The lady asks who gave her permission to touch her and then screams and orders her to let go. The coachman remembered that the first murder happened by accident and he only pushed her slightly, but an unfortunate fall led to her death, and at that time he was scared because he had killed a person. It happened late at night, and there was not a soul around. The man understands that this girl was unlucky to die here, and he, on the contrary, was extremely lucky, and this is how she was punished for being rude to him. The cab driver thought that all women are the same because they live happily ever after, thanks to their pretty faces, and behave impudently, and he has to work his ass off every day to earn his bread. He thinks that all this is because of women, because they are nasty women who dare to brazenly ignore him. When the man got rid of the corpse, he thought that it was an amazing, wonderful feeling, and for his second murder he had already carefully planned everything. The girl got out of the carriage, thanked the gentleman, and then said in surprise that this was not the place she asked to be taken to. The coachman pulled out a knife and finished off the girl, and at that time he thought that he was not bad, because all these girls did not pay the slightest attention to him, and therefore he believed that they deserved to die. The killer looked at the victim and thought that she looked like the girl he liked, because when she looked at him, she always smiled. But when he came to her with flowers, he found her with another man, who, by the way, owned several carts. The man believed that he was not bad, because this was only a just punishment, and those who were rotten because of their insatiable greed for money were bad, and he believed that at this time the girl who was sitting in his carriage was also like that. The officer reports that from the list of coachmen who can use several carriages to commit a crime, about 20 own 2 or 3 carriages, and they excluded the old men, narrowing the circle to 10 people. The assistant says that the rest of the list were selected according to the movement to intermediate points, places to rest to feed and water the horses, as well as roads similar to those where the crime was committed, and finally they found the main suspect. Zedekiah asks where this man is now. The knight replies that they are trying to establish his whereabouts since information has come in that he stopped at a stable to the southeast. The Duke realized that this was exactly the place where the girl was now and suggested reporting as soon as they found him. At this time, the main character asks to move quickly to the northeast and thought that she was going there unconsciously and did not understand how she would find him at all. The girl reflects that if she finds him now, he should have been caught a long time ago, and she believes that he lives in a place soaked in red liquid as always. Suddenly the lady smelled a red liquid, and she doesn't understand where it came from, because it seems like they tried to cover it up with perfume, but she still feels the lingering smell and thinks that she can't be mistaken, because she will never forget this smell. Rusi wondered where this smell came from in the carriage. She began to examine the carriage, and at that time remembered the words of the maid that a maniac had recently appeared in the city, and apparently all the victims were girls, and the lady had found an earring. The officer tells the gentleman that they have already finished inspecting the passengers of the carts last time, and asks why they need to do it again. The Count explains that searching an entire carriage is very tedious, and all simply because they suspect the driver, and then tells the boys that they must have seen the crime scene and is interested in what they can say. The knight asks what's wrong, and the gentleman claims that the reason they haven't caught the damn bastard yet is because they all think like that. The young gentleman reflects that given the terrible state of the corpse, the surrounding area should have been flooded with red liquid, but in fact the crime scene was clean because the letters were written in this liquid. There was a lot of it, and so they mistakenly took it for a murder scene. The officer asks in surprise if this means they fell for this bastard's trick, and then says that now he understands why they suspect the coachman. Zedekiah reports that the carriage does not look suspicious wherever it stops, and knowing this, if he finished off the victim in one place before moving the body by carriage to where it would be found, then he states that if they understood everything, then they should hurry with the inspection. The Duke says that if they don't find the killer today, he will have another victim on his account. At this time, the man being in the forest thought that this was great because there was no one there, and then he pulled out a knife and told the miss that they were already there, and at this time he thought that as soon as she took a step, he would cut her white neck. The girl apologizes and then explains that her dress is stuck between the seats and asks if he could help her. He says that he understands, and of course he will help her, and at that moment he puts the knife in his pocket and thinks that he has no reason to be afraid. When the coachman entered the carriage, he bent down to help, and at that moment the girl pulled out a knife and wounded him, and she ran away. The wounded man does not understand what happened, and he wonders how she understood that he wants to finish off this damn girl, and then screaming he says that he will put her into eternal sleep. The cab driver screams and tells her to get out, and then asks if she really thinks she can escape from him, and insists that she has stopped wasting his time. At this time, Rootsy hid behind a tree and thought that he was a damn bastard who had created a lot of problems for her, and naturally she assumed that there should be plenty of places to hide in the forest, but she thought that this was not the case at all, because as luck would have it, there was only a field behind these trees, and if she ran there, he would grab her right there. The young lady doesn't know what to do, and the man screams and says that he found her and calls her a little wretch who tried to escape from him. The coachman saw a stone that was tied to the ribbon and she threw it at him, and then asked if she thought this cheap trick would work, and thought that in any case she would not get out of here without a cart. The man assumed that the girl went to the cart, and then screaming says that she was caught. He attacks her and calls her a vile creature and then asks if she tried to fool him. The cab driver asks if she really thought that he wouldn't be able to finish her off without a knife, and therefore suggests that she not play with him because his bare hands would be enough to finish her off. The man attacked the girl and asked if she knew that finishing off someone like her gives him simply incomparable pleasure, because beauties like her always look down on people like him. At this time, the main character pulled out a knife and then wounded the attacker. The girl bought this knife when she was in the city and considers it a blessing that she made such a purchase. The coachman wonders if she planned it, and if it was just a decoy. The lady thinks it's a pity that he realized only now that it would be easy to finish off the weak girl. Rootsy calls him a fucking bastard who kills not everyone in a row but exclusively women, and she knows that the reason is obvious, and then says that she will cut off his head. Hearing this, the man asks to spare him because he made a mistake and therefore regrets it. The lady says that the women he finished off probably begged him for the same thing, and he screams and says that it hurts a lot, and he has a lot of red fluid, and therefore asks her to stop. Rusifella claims that he cares so much about his miserable life, and when he killed all those women, he didn't think that they were also in pain, and she wants him to just die, just like all his victims died. The man screamed and asked to be saved, but suddenly the girl heard a voice saying that they had finally found the suspect. Ruchi realized that these were the Knights of Yanskar, and the Duke asked the lady in surprise what she was doing here. The main character understands that they are not on time, because just think that of all the possible sides, she demonstrates exactly this one, and then says that his lordship is really on time, and then loses consciousness. The doctor says that fortunately her wounds are not life-threatening, and most of the red fluid belongs to the criminal, and then claims that she did well. Zedekiah asks his assistant in surprise if he has ever heard of Lady Aiden studying swordsmanship. The officer replies that he himself is very surprised and believes that in any case she was very lucky because the injury could have been much more serious, and believes that perhaps she used all her strength in the face of mortal danger. Lewerk reports that the Second Order immediately rushed to join the First as soon as word spread about the capture of the criminal, and therefore considers it surprising that he really could not compare with him, Duke Hint, and then asks how he managed to get on the trail of the serial killer. The gentleman says that as he assumed there is too little red liquid on the bodies, and then asks if that is true. The fair-haired gentleman reports that he would say this childishness with the blood writing served as a good distraction. Zedekiah heard this and realized that he continued to pursue Liam knowing this, and thinks that he is a bastard, and then says that in any case it is a great luck that she is okay. Lewerk says that to think that she encountered a maniac raising a fuss by running away from home, and thinks that it is not luck. Even if she was able to survive being captured, she is stronger than she seems. The Duke looked at him angrily, and the blonde said that he was impolite, and therefore asked for forgiveness. The main character thought that she had finally become a knight, and now, thanks to the art of wielding a sword in which she had succeeded more than in anything else. The girl believes that now she will be able to protect her kingdom and her valor. The lady looked at herself in the mirror and thought that it suited her because in fact it was a little tight, but she knew that it would be like that because the clothes were designed for men, because before the girl had not stopped and became a knight, and it seems that the tailors simply took the first one that fit the size. The little girl says that she is a commoner and also a girl, and thinks that they must be a little unhappy because unlike the aristocrats, she cannot order a suit to be tailored. So she is quite happy with this. The girl understands that if she wears a larger suit, the sleeves and shoulders will hang down, and she thinks that appearing in front of His Majesty in such a suit would be simply ridiculous, and therefore decides to simply tighten her breasts. The guy asks Estelle if she thinks it's too much, even though she says it's just him. After all, he's a man and he doesn't care, but she should be more careful with the others. The girl says that she understands and then asks if it is necessary to be so smart, because she put on the uniform again after a long time and understands that it feels good to be in it. The guy asks what it means after a long time. The main character reflects on the fact that she knows that it is just a dream, and she wonders why he then finished her off, and then screaming, she asks him to answer why everything turned out this way and not to run away from the answer. Russie woke up and realized that she was in a carriage, and the Duke said that seeing her wake up screaming the name of a man, and that is why it seems to him that she came to her senses if she sees such colorful dreams. The man says that her throat is badly damaged and therefore thinks that she should not talk now. The girl does not understand why she is here again, and then screams and asks what is wrong with Liam. Zedekiah says that if she was really afraid of Liam, she would not have run away because in any case the person who attacked her was not Liam, but a serial killer, and the people called him the Butcher. Hearing this, the main character does not understand why this idiot is saying something so obvious. The girl reflects on the fact that Rusafella has never seen Liam before. He thinks that she mistook this swindler for him, and understands that she almost got caught so stupidly, and then asks if Liam was caught. The gentleman says that the description was wrong, and it was just someone who looked like him, and therefore she has nothing to worry about because the serial killer was caught, and Liam Herku was never in the city. The Duke says that it would be great if she did not repeat such thoughtless actions in the future, and then asks if she knows how many knights were mobilized to search for her because they had to try to sort out the mess that she had made. Zedekiah explains that he means milady, and if she continues her tricks further, he will be forced to ask her father to cool her dust with house arrest. Russie, hearing this, thought that it didn't matter because she was calm, and then said that of course she would take this into account, because he was right and she had caused a lot of problems for everyone, including him. The girl says that she will think about it because she did not really understand what she was doing, and at that time she realized that she was no longer Estelle. The gentleman was surprised because she repented so quickly, and at that time he even felt a little guilty because he knows that strictly speaking the main goal was this bastard, and the girl ended up there by chance, and he thinks that perhaps he was too harsh with her. The lady says that even if it is so, it will be problematic if he wants to limit her actions, and then explains that she wants to say that he will no longer have to deal with problems because of her, since she is able to take care of herself. Rusi says that she will talk to her father and make sure that he will not bother him anymore, because she believes that they have caused him a lot of inconvenience. Hearing this, the Count smiled and thought that it seemed she was not the one to worry about, and then they sat and rode in silence. The man says that it is a shame, and who would have thought that some crazy woman would appear at the very moment when they arrive in Greenville, and it seems that things are not going quite smoothly. The gentleman says that being accused of this scoundrel's deeds is just disgusting. The girl smiled and said that she heard that in Greenhill only the lazy didn't gossip about what a scumbag he was, and then said that he was a mister and he only kills innocent girls. Liam angrily says that if she calls him that again, he will wring her neck. The guy says that they have come such a long way, but it is only getting harder because now Liam's face illuminates the whole of Greenhill with its radiance, and therefore suggests not to commit rash acts, because he knows that there are still many chances ahead. Liam says that as long as that damn bastard who killed them, Ishtar, is alive, Khalid will not forgive him. In the Imperial Palace, the woman says that there are only 3 days left until the autumn ball, and her son agrees with her and says that time flies so quickly, and it seems to him that she has had a lot of worries in the last few days, and then asks what is wrong with the preparations. Mother says that she means that the Crown Prince asked her to ensure the presence of a certain young lady at the ball. The young gentleman asks if she means Count Aiden's daughter Mother, says that she means her and she is a little worried about it. The guy says that Temir will one day become the king of this country and therefore believes that there is no reason to reject his request because it is just a meeting with a girl. The lady says that he cannot help but know because only a little time has passed since the moment when this lady was involved in the story with the serial killer and thought about that. In addition, only a couple of months have passed since she tried to drown herself in the royal pond. The lady understands that she will undoubtedly become a very desirable prey for evil tongues, and the son claims that she should not worry so much about this because he understands that the situation is quite delicate, but she personally brought all this upon herself and in the end it is not her concern. The woman says that she thinks that this is all a plot by the prince to destroy her relationship with Count Aiden, although she understands that she should not say so. The young gentleman reports that Count Aiden is the Crown Prince's uncle on his mother's side, and is sure that he will not object if they invite Lady Aiden, and is sure that the prince has no such plans because his bad temper is simply making itself known again. The lady asks if he really thinks so, and the son replies that of course he does, and explains that if he really had something like that in mind, he would have resorted to other methods, and therefore suggests that she be sure about this, since inviting Lady Aiden with the intention of insulting would mean causing serious insults and damage to the reputation of the Count himself. The guy says that in his place he would never make enemies in such an obvious way. At this time, the woman teaches the main character to dance. She suggests that she not spread her fingers and make movements gracefully and raise her head higher because it is bad manners to raise the tips of her shoes up and down. The teacher suggests stopping and then tells the young lady that she does not see in her the necessary passion and desire to learn. At this point, the girl realizes that she does not have it. It all started with an invitation to the autumn ball a few days ago, and the girl can't believe that she has to be there, and of course show off her knowledge of etiquette. The letter was written by the Queen herself, so there is no chance of refusing. The young lady understands that this is all because of that incident with the prince, because she believes that her failed suicide has damaged his reputation, and it is obvious that he is going to arrange an execution for her. The lady suggests taking a break, and the girl agrees with her and says that this is better than what she has said today. The teacher says that she, of course, knew that the lady had lost her memory, but not to that extent. And the main character says that she has forgotten everything completely, and therefore she sincerely does not understand what difference it makes how she holds her skirt and why she has to wear this bunch of frills and petticoats and listen to these false pleasantries and conduct polite conversations. The woman asks the lady in surprise what she is saying and then claims that all aristocrats follow these rules. The girl objects and says that she does not and has never met a knight or aristocrat who would care about this nonsense, and then says that only young ladies for some reason have to listen to this nonsense. The lady claims that she speaks as if she had seen at least 100 knights, and says that first of all women cannot be compared with men, and suggests that this be understood. At this time, the young lady thought that she should not overwork herself because it does not matter how hard she tries, because she will not become a knight, and this is clear as day, because there are no knight girls. The man invites the young lady to listen to him because it is more than just silly formalities. He claims that etiquette is one of the main differences between aristocrats and commoners who are forced to suffer every day of their lives, and that getting an education is not vanity at all, because impeccable knowledge of etiquette determines the dignity and nobility of a nobleman. The girl wonders if men shouldn't also learn etiquette. The teacher says that there are many other ways for a man to show his power and high birth, since they learn the art of the sword and military science. The lady explains that a woman has much less opportunity to express herself, so everything she does must be impeccable, and even the folds of her dress and manner of speech matter. The little girl became interested in what if, in this way, a woman simply becomes a beautiful thing, and when she was still herself, she thought that a lady is an empty shell that only cares about clothes. The girl believes that she was ignorant and had no idea that each of them lives in a golden cage, and as a woman she also faced many inconveniences, just picked up a sword and already forgot about it, that the form is a little tight in the chest, and she understands that in fact everyone is struggling with difficulties. The main character thought that if the rustle of a dress and a sharp tongue are the lady's weapons, then she will accept the rules of this game, and then says that her arguments are very weighty, and if these are the rules, then she will follow them. The lady says that she is very glad that they came to an agreement and therefore suggests continuing the lesson. The maid asks the mistress if she is ready and then puts a dress on her. The young lady screams and asks Louise if it must be that she has been holding a grudge against her for a long time. The maid asks in surprise what she is saying, because she doesn't know how she can hold a grudge against her, and so she suggests that they pull themselves together a little more, and then asks if she is still upset about that incident at the fair. When the main character arrived at the ball, the aristocrats were surprised to hear that Lady Aiden was here, and they couldn't understand how she had the shame to show up here. Rushi thinks that they really think that she doesn't hear them, and at that time she remembered the teacher's words, that it's not perfect, of course, but now she looks like a decent young lady, but even in this case at the reception, no one will want to talk to her, and on the contrary, everyone will grin. The girl was surprised and asked if it would be because the crown prince had abandoned her. She had decided to drown herself. The woman replied that she knew everything perfectly well without her, and it was hard to even call it a compliment. Rusifella thought that she didn't care what they said because it wasn't she who was condemning this but Lady Aiden. The gentleman turns to the girl and says that he hopes that she will not do anything stupid. And at this time, the lady realized that he is worried about his daughter and tells her father that she will not cause him problems and that he should not worry about it. The Duke says he is relieved and suggests moving away to attract less attention. The little girl thought that her father was so caring and thought that the egoist was a real Rusifella if she jumped into the lake without thinking, leaving her loving father, and she will never understand this. Duke Idris asks the Count how he is doing, and the girl, surprised, quietly asks her father who this is. He replies that this man is the Crown Prince's uncle on his mother's side. The main character realized that this meant that Rusifella and the Crown Prince were related, and she couldn't believe that they met with such a close relationship. Ruchi understands that she also needs to find out how to greet her new relative, and then tells her father that they will see each other later. The father thanks his daughter for her understanding and invites her to go have fun with friends because he will be back soon. At this time, the main character heard a voice saying that this was a lie and that she would not return, and realized that these were definitely not her thoughts and decided to think about it carefully. The baby understands that she suddenly moved into someone else's body, but she didn't really ask questions about it because all this time she thought that Rusifella had died, and if not, then her consciousness was still in this body. Suddenly, a stranger approaches the girl and asks her in surprise how she feels. Rushi looked at her and became curious about who she is. The girl reports that they say that something really serious happened to her, and she heard that the lady was riding in a carriage, and the coachman who turned out to be a serial killer asks if he did anything bad. The stranger says that she is a poor thing because she heard that she was being strangled, and asks if she has really lost her voice, and wonders if she doesn't see that she is worried about her or is silent because she has nothing to say. The main character objects and explains that the reason is that she has no idea who she is, and at that time she realized that Rusifella did not answer her, and she simply imagined it. The lady says that they sometimes greeted each other and asks if her memory is really that bad. Rusi suggests that it is possible. Rusifella looked at this girl and thought that she was wearing a dress that was too simple for a royal ball, and therefore it seemed that her family was not very influential, and therefore did not think that she alone dared to do this, and she became interested in who was behind this. The stranger asks the lady where she is looking and whether she is ignoring her. At this time, the main character thought about what she found in whose hands this girl is a puppet. Rusi says that she only has one question, and of course there are rumors that she almost got into big trouble, and then asks how she found out that she was almost strangled in the carriage. The stranger was surprised and then said that they were just knights, and the lady asked if the emperor himself was doing this business, and also wondered how she knew such details, and whether she was hinting that the royal knights were not able to keep their mouths shut. The aristocrats who heard their conversation were surprised, and they realized that the case was not yet closed, and they also became interested in how this girl knew about this. The main character looked at the woman with blonde hair and thought that it was that cutie who had extracted information from the knights. The stranger asks if her fiance is also a knight and then wonders what will happen to his reputation if she says such things. Rusi is surprised and asks what she is talking about, and then claims that it was not she who undermined the Duke's reputation, but she. The young lady reflects that if she thinks about it, she wonders where he is at all, because she thinks that this gentleman would like to admire this pathetic performance. The main character thought that she was taken, and the lady in the green dress quickly left, but she thinks that she did not intend to at all, but this atmosphere and victory are hers. The butler announces that His Highness the Emperor has arrived, and the young lady realized that he is finally here who declared war on Olbay, but she cannot believe that the one she so wishes dead is standing right in front of her, and therefore wanted to wring his neck right now. The Duke became interested in what Lady Aiden was looking at, and realized that the imperial family was standing to the side, and her attention was focused on them. At this time, the young lady is thinking about whether it is worth finishing him off now, but she understands that in this situation it is simply impossible, and she is sure that if he attacks without a weapon and previous skills, she will be the one who will be finished off. The girl thought that she should be calm and return to her place. Rusifella doesn't understand what she's doing and what role she's playing and why she's living. She wondered if she was pretending to be a lady, or if she wanted to kill the emperor as a knight of the Alder should. The little girl understands that even if she does this, she will not be able to return to Poland. Suddenly a man comes in and says that she will get into trouble if she starts walking around the imperial palace like that. Hearing this, the young lady realized that this was the imperial living room and then said that she was sorry and would leave right now. The guy grabs the girl by the hand and asks if she was waiting for him, and then asks if she is still angry and pretends that they do not know each other. He hugs her and says that he missed her. At this time, the main character assumes that this man may be the crown prince. The girl reminds that he said that he loves her, and the man says that from now on she should not expect warm feelings from him, but she should know that he is the only one who is trying to protect her, because the king and queen are very disappointed in her. The young gentleman asks what she is willing to put on the line for their love, and offers her to prove that her love is worthy of an answer, and then claims that he loves her. The little girl tells Tamir that she loves him too. Suddenly the lady falls, and the prince says that she is so annoying and asks if there is no pride at all, and therefore suggests that she learn to accept defeat and that she stops bothering him and just disappears. The prince turns to Rushi so that she listens to him, and no matter what it is just a small performance, and that is if he tells her to disappear, then she must prove the sincerity of her feelings. The young lady agrees with him and says that she will do it and prove her love. She climbs onto the railing and asks if now no one will dare to doubt their connection, and then falls into the water and says that she loves him. The main character realizes that these are not her memories and thinks that it may be that these are the memories of Rusifella. The prince says that he is touched. He hugs the girl and tells her that he did not fully believe that her fragile body would have the determination to jump into the lake, and then kisses her. At this time, the baby does not understand what he is doing and why he is suddenly doing this. At this time, Joseph says that it seems to him that the crown prince is tired and looking at all this fuss he enjoys, but he has already left. Zedekiah is informed that he sees, and even if so, the royal living room is on the second floor and he will return soon, and at this time he thought that it seemed to him that Lady Aiden also headed there. The prince says that he is also a bit tired, and at that time he remembered that her look earlier, and maybe she has not forgotten him. However, even if so, he thinks that it is shameless to secretly meet with the prince when her fiance is here. Zedekiah went up to the second floor. He heard the girl screaming and she asked if he thought she would let him get away with it. The lady screams and asks if he wants to finish her off, and then offers to do it because after what he did, he is no better than an animal. Rushi, when she saw the gentleman, she asked in surprise what he was doing here. He saw the prince and realized that this was the place where the lady had just come from the royal living room and thought about what it meant that she was still dating him. Zedekiah asks if she and the prince had a love quarrel. She is surprised and wonders what he is talking about, and also wonders if he is talking about love even after hearing all those screams. The girl realized that it was clear from his face that he didn't understand what she was talking about, and then she asked if it wasn't clear, and then she explained that she was saying that she kicked the ass of that royal bastard. The gentleman turns to the young lady and asks if she has gone crazy, and she says that since he finally understood, he should pretend that he knows nothing, because if he decides to start a nice conversation with her now, he will hear a lot of new things about himself. The count asks what happened and whether she had to behave like that. She explains that she remembered jumping into the royal lake and then says that the prince was the one who helped her do it. Before she passed out, she saw people pointing at her and giggling nastily. Ruchi says that he has her wrapped around his finger with his beautiful words, and the man asks in surprise if she didn't come here because she has feelings for him. The little girl screams and asks what the hell he is talking about, and then explains that if she had tender feelings for him, she would be interested in being between his legs. The Duke says he thinks the matter is settled and starts laughing. The young lady says she doesn't see anything funny in it, and so suggests they stop laughing and start dancing, and then says he has no idea what pain she went through to learn that dance. The lady extends her hand and offers to take it, and at that moment he realized that she was accompanying him and considered this an unusual invitation. The aristocrats looked at this couple in surprise and did not understand what was happening and whether the Duke was really dancing, and they assumed that maybe he was worried about his bride. The gentlemen say that Duke Hint Sr. was never sentimental, and they do not understand how he could allow his son to become engaged to someone like her. But they understand that even if this is so, they look good together. Zedekiah tells the lady that he is imagining things and then asks if she is deliberately stepping on his feet. She says that if he noticed, he should do him a favor and not interfere. The gentleman asks in surprise why he should put up with this, and the little girl replies that it's because she wants it that way and wants to crush his foot at least once. The man says that he seems to have become the object of her hatred and he wonders why, and then asks if he has offended her in any way. Rusi says that she doesn't think he did anything wrong and thought it was nothing personal, and he wonders if the girl is perhaps offended because he didn't pay attention to her as his fiancé, and he thought that maybe that was the reason. Zedekiah explains that he means that another would probably show more interest, and then says that he is just used to the fact that usually the first to show interest in him. However, it seems that she is not at all one of those. The girl says that she doesn't care what he's used to and then asks why he's telling her all this, and does he care about her sympathies? The main character says that she will tell him so be it, because that is her greatest interest now, and then she stands on his foot. At this time the man thought that in the end she did step on his foot, and however she was light as a feather, and it didn't hurt him at all. Rusi asks if he knows how many days she suffered to finally have the pleasure of doing this, and then says that she is much better now. Zedekiah looked at the little girl and thought that her enthusiasm now and for the opportunity to see this smile, the trampled feet are a trifling price. He thinks that he has gone crazy because he thinks about such things. The next morning, the father asks his daughter how she slept. He says that he is very sorry that he left her yesterday because the conversation unexpectedly dragged on, and reports that he heard that the Duke of Hint escorted her home. The young lady claims that everything is fine, and the gentleman says that he feels guilty towards her and therefore wants to spend the whole day with her, and then says that they will do whatever she wants and asks how about going shopping. The girl objects and says that her father must be tired and therefore asks him to rest. The Duke thanks the young lady because he thinks she is worried about him. He says that his daughter has grown so much, and he still can't get used to the fact that she is no longer a little girl. Father says that she is more and more like Rowana. Hearing this, Ruzi realized that she is like her mother and does not understand why this unclear flash of awareness is happening again. The main character reflects on the fact that every time she sees Rusifela's memories, she feels that she no longer belongs to herself and considers this to be quite unpleasant. The father informs that His Majesty wants to see her and he has sent an invitation. Hearing this, the girl asks in surprise if he wants to see her and suggests that maybe he is angry. The Count says that he is not angry at all because he did not look angry. The young lady accepted the invitation and at this time does not understand what his intentions are. Ruchi greets the king, and the girl does not understand where this greeting comes from and thinks that this is also a memory of Rusifela. The emperor invites her to raise her head and then says that he has not seen her for a long time, and their meeting evokes a feeling of nostalgia and then asks how old she was when they first met. The girl replies that she was 12, and at that time she thought that she could answer even such questions right away. The king says that he still remembers how she hid behind her father's back and looked at him, and the child who did this now looks at him without being shy and asks if she is afraid of him now. The young lady thought that this king really looked like someone who started a conquest when he was very young and understood that his oppressive aura was not at all like that of the Alder King. Rusi asks His Majesty if he wants her to be afraid and then says that she cannot give him an answer without knowing his intentions. At this time, the main character thought that she could not believe that she was forced to grovel before the king of Yansgar just to survive and considered it humiliating. His Majesty says that he does not have any hidden intentions because now he is simply looking at the little girl who has grown up and understands how much time has passed. Ruchi says that she cannot remain a child all her life, and he agrees with her and says that he knew about her special relationship with Tamir but did not grant her the status of crown princess, and then asks why she thinks that he did not do this. The girl says that she heard that he doesn't like her. The king asks if Tamir told her this and then claims that he never thought so but only said that he didn't want this burden for her Rowana's daughter. The emperor says that her mother did not like social conventions and therefore preferred to be an ordinary countess to the title of duchess, and he also believed that her daughter would not want this either because she considers being a queen to be a heavy burden, and that is why he did not choose her. Hearing this, the little girl wondered if she had misheard him because he had just said that if the mother did not want to be a duchess, then the daughter would not want to either, and thought that she was an egocentric empress. His Majesty reports that he truly does not understand what prompted her to do such a serious act as jumping into the lake, and if he had known that she had such thoughts, he would have thought about it twice. The king asks if she still loves Tamir, and if she does not want to marry Duke Heinta, he will break off their engagement by royal will. Rusi thanks His Majesty for his concern, and then announces that everything is over between her and the crown prince. The girl believes that the crown prince decided to keep silent about yesterday's incident because he must be too embarrassed to tell this interesting story. The king informs her that since she says so, she can contact him at any time if she wants to break off the engagement, and that is why he has invited her today since all the I's must be dotted in this complicated relationship. The main character followed the servant after the audience, so she became lost in thought and got lost because she doesn't understand where she went and where she is at all. The girl thought that she actually did not show it, but she was very surprised because she understood that even if by order of the emperor it would be possible to dissolve the engagement, then when trying to annul the will with as many as 3 temple seals, it would be unlikely to avoid the resistance of the imperial palace and the temple itself. The young lady believes that many people loved Rusifela because she was good and kind. Rusi was lost in thought and didn't notice how she bumped into a guy who was carrying a lot of books. She says that she is very sorry because she was inattentive and then asks if he hurt himself on the corner of the book. The man says that he is the only one who should apologize because he did not notice her and asks if she got hurt. The little girl looked at the guy and thought that this young man, and she saw him at the banquet and assumes that he is the second Prince Joseph. And then she greets His Highness. The young gentleman objects with a cry and asserts that there is no need for so many pleasantries. The girl says that she will help him collect the books that fell, and at that time she thought that Yansgar is doomed because the first prince is rotten and the second is a fool. Joseph asks the lady to let him take the books because a young lady can't lift such heavy things, and she says that she crashed into him while running headlong and therefore must quickly collect them. The young gentleman asks if she is lost, and then says that he thought she was here because she is also interested in the royal library, as it contains many priceless books. The prince reminds her that she said she had lost her way, but she climbed the stairs and believes that the lady is truly unique. Rushi explains that the higher the place from which they look, the easier it is for them to find their way. The man says that he knew about this too, because he heard that travelers determine the right path in this way, and therefore it seems to him that the girl has read many books about travel. The little girl looked out the window and he asked what had suddenly caught her attention, and then he went to the window and said that it was a squad from the 2nd Division training, but he was sorry that it wasn't a squad from the 1st Division. The prince believes that then the lady would be able to see her fiance, and asks if this is true. At this time, the main character thought that this could not be, and that it was impossible because she did not understand why he was here. Joseph asks the lady what happened and why she leaves so suddenly. She screams and asks who this man is. The prince turns to the girl and asks her to wait a minute because he is completely exhausted after all this running around, and asks her to let go of his collar. Rusi calls him a scoundrel and says that she knows that he is a master of the sword and therefore suggests that he not play the fool and answer her without evasion. Joseph says that he kept wondering who the man was that had caused her such amazement, and then he says that it was Duke Luerk and is more than sure that she had met him before, and not just once or twice, and asks why she doesn't remember. The gentleman says that he understands that the crown prince is the only person she will look at. At this time, the main character thought that this is indeed Halit Luerk, the imperial dog who sold his homeland for the title of duke and a high position in an enemy country. The man says that to be more precise and accurate, he is the dog of the crown prince and not the emperor, and then smiled and asked the lady if it could be that she switched from Duke Haint to Duke Luerk. And at this time the lady is surprised because Halit is still alive after he finished her off, and then she stood on the windowsill, but the prince grabbed her in time so that she would not fall. The gentleman asks what she intends to do, and whether she is going to jump straight from here. He asks if the lady knows what floor this is, and then claims that she will kill herself. The girl screams and tells him to let her go, but the guy objects and claims that she could die, and then suggests that she use a more traditional method and go down the stairs since he knows that she won't get away with just a broken bone if she jumps. Joseph put the swan on the floor and then apologized and said that he would bring his repentance to her a little later. At this time, the main character thought that this was the head of the so-called Ishtar of Alder, and that the king of Yansgar cut it off with his own hands. The emperor says that he has heard of him, Halit Lieutenant of the Order of the Sitora of the 3rd Division of Olshi. He bows his head and agrees with his majesty. The man says he knows he was outnumbered, and can't believe he just cut off his commander's head and surrendered, then calls him a cowardly dog. Khalid explains that if he hadn't done this, everyone would have died and he didn't intend to die at the behest of an incompetent commander. The king asks if this means that he wanted to prolong his life and is ready to live even as Yansgar's dog. The fair-haired man says that if he wants him to be a dog, then he will be one, and if the king allows him to live, then of course he will not dare to bite his master, because there is no greater honor for him. His Majesty says that his last name is Gabrain, and that means that he is from a side branch of the Olsha royal family, and now he is the only survivor of that family. The king announces that from now on his surname is Luerk, and despite the fact that he has no lands, he will retain his title. Halit thanks his Majesty and wishes him many years of prosperity and calls him the son of Yansgar. The main character thought that the place where this idiot hit the prince really hurts and therefore thinks that it was not a dream. The girl remembers Khalid, how he came to her and asked if she was okay because he came to help her. She understands that the name Luerk is unfamiliar to her and thinks that if she was finished off, then she just needs to take revenge. Rusi took the sword and thought that she just needed to cut his throat. The maid, when she saw the mistress in the garden, did not understand why she went outside without an umbrella, because it was raining cats and dogs. The butler did not understand when she managed to go out, and then said that he would go for her right away. But suddenly the lady fell. Zedekiah asks in surprise if he is saying that this girl never ceases to amaze because rumors have appeared that she has gone crazy. The assistant reports that the lady is currently resting in the count's house, but knows that rumors tend to spread quickly. The gentleman smiled and said that she would go out in the middle of the night in her pajamas with a sword in her hands, walk to the garden barefoot, and suddenly started crying. And he thinks that this is really worthy of rumors. The Duke says that even he might think that this girl has completely gone crazy, and then asks what her condition is now. Bernard replies that she came down with a cold and a high temperature, and considering that the lady is already in poor health, the situation is very serious. Zedekiah says that of course this girl was soaked to the skin in the rain, and orders to make sure that rumors about her prank do not spread even further. The gentleman thought that she seemed strange to him from the very beginning, but what actually happened this time was very interesting to him, because the lady was crying in the rain and thought that something happened in the palace. The Duke asks if he is talking to a lost lady who wanted to look at the imperial garden, and so he went to the balcony, and then she suddenly decided to throw herself down. And is that all? The gentleman says that something else actually happened, but he doesn't want to talk about it, as it's the lady's personal business. Zedekiah suggests not to pretend that he is worried about her reputation, since he believes that he is simply thinking about how he can use this to his advantage. The fair-haired man agrees with him and says that it is possible, and if he does tell him the continuation, he asks if he will do what he asks. The Duke says he's a crazy bastard, and then asks how many times he has to tell her that even though they're engaged, they're not in such a relationship that he would have the audacity to ask her to fulfill his wishes. Joseph believes that there is definitely something between them, since the Duke himself came to him and is now asking him questions in such detail, and this on such a rainy day. The blonde man says that this lady is not so simple because he thought that she was an ordinary girl obsessed with his older brother, but she knew that he owned a sword. Hearing this, the Duke was surprised, and the prince claims that she blurted out that he knew perfectly well that he owned a sword, and therefore suggested not to evade the answer, and speak directly. The gentleman says that he personally knows how carefully he hid it, so he can't figure out how she found out. The prince says that he didn't deny it, by the way, because people still wouldn't believe her if she decided to tell someone about it. Zedekiah was surprised when he heard this, because he could not imagine in what tone she could have said something like that, and he had no idea how she knew about this at all, and believed that he knew little about her at all. The Duke reflects on the fact that he only saw her a few times in the palace, and each time she was with the crown prince. The man thought that although she said that everything was fine with her, he was wondering if this was really true, and thought that this girl was still suffering from the breakup with him because he had never seen such an expression on her face before. Zedekiah remembers his last meeting with the lady and understands that at that moment these emotions seemed so sincere, and knows that if this is not the case, then he is interested in what it is because he does not know. Luerk says that it must be hard for the lady to catch a cold in such weather, and then asks if they should visit her. The gentleman tells him not to interfere, and then asks if he hasn't already been told that they are not in that kind of relationship. He says that she has had enough today, and so leaves, and the blonde guy wishes him a safe journey and offers to give the lady his regards. At this time, the girl looks out the window and watches the rain. She is a little tired because this illness has exhausted her. The maid tells the mistress that the Duke of Hint is waiting for her downstairs and offers her to put a blanket over her shoulders. The main character asks why, and then tells her to just tell him to leave. The maid reminds the lady that she herself said that she allows him to visit her. The lady says that it happened. Loija says that if she really doesn't want to see him, she asks if they can send the Duke back because she thinks that the lady shouldn't overexert herself. The main character tells him to come in, and at this time, she does not understand why she wanted to see his face right now. Zedekiah saw the girl he asked if she had really gone mad, and the lady touched him and asked if this was a knight's uniform. The man was surprised and replied that it was a knight's uniform, and the lady said that it was beautiful. The man says that he thinks the illness is really serious, and the main character says that despite the rain, he also had fencing training today. The Duke says that of course it is natural for knights. Hearing this, the main character agreed with him and thought that once it was natural for her too. Rusi understands that now she is a little wet in the rain, and her whole body is already burning, and she has no strength to even walk in this state, let alone swing a sword. And she understands that she is simply not able to take revenge on the Khalid. The lady says that he is a duke and believes that he should have enough power and influence not only in war. Hearing this, the man was surprised and said that he absolutely does not understand what she was getting at, and the lady explained that she was simply saying that he was amazing. The main character thought that if she had enough power, enough strength, then she would destroy the Khalid, but she knows that she can do nothing to the Duke, the daughter of an inconspicuous count. Rusi claims that he is truly an outstanding person, and at that time she thought about finishing off the Khalid, but she understands that she has nothing. The man asks her in surprise what she's talking about, and then tells her that she needs to calm down. The girl kisses the Duke on the lips, and at this time thinks about how she wants to use him. Zedekiah asks the lady what just happened, and she asks if he likes it. The man explains that he is just a little surprised, and she kisses him again. When the main character looked at the guy, she thought that he understood her cheap trick, and she doesn't understand how she even thought of it, and it's obvious that she really went crazy. And at that moment, the gentleman left. The father asks if her temperature has risen again. The maid says that they have seen a significant improvement, but suddenly, after the Duke's visit, the lady has become weaker. When the girl saw her father, she wanted to get out of bed, but he objected and suggested that she lie down and not strain herself. The gentleman says he can't believe her health has deteriorated so much, and then asks why she doesn't go to their estate outside the city and get some treatment there. Her father says he is sure that a holiday away from the capital will do her good. She objects and asks why screaming, and then claims that she can recover here too. The daughter says that she doesn't want to go anywhere. The gentleman says that to tell the truth, bad rumors about her are now circulating around the capital, and people say that she is crazy. Rusi thought that all this happened because of her fault, and she doesn't understand how she can be sane now, and then asks her father if he also thinks that she is crazy, and therefore wants to send her to the mansion so that she doesn't burden him. At this time, the man looked at her and thought that she was a poor girl because she had always been surrounded by love, but never knew the truth. The father says he is sorry, and the daughter says that to tell the truth, she does not want to know the reason he takes her hands and says that she will understand later. When the assistant made tea for the gentleman, he thought that an oppressive aura was emanating from him since the day of Lady Aiden's visit, and he became interested in what happened there, and then told the gentleman to be careful when taking the cup because it was very hot. Bernard reports that they received 2 letters today. First of all, a letter from the Karimabad Guild asking for funding for weapons equipment. Zedekiah asks if they are a charity fund for them and then tells them to throw it away. Hearing this, the assistant asks in surprise what he means and then claims that if they do this, they will hardly be able to obtain rare weapons in the future. The gentleman understands that the war ended long ago, and he can't understand why they are still developing new weapons, and then asks if they have plans to start a civil war. The Duke claims that if that's what he wants, he can put up his own money. Bernard replies that he doesn't want to, because he's listening to his orders. Zedekiah tells him to open his eyes from now on when he brings him anything. The servant says that he understands him and will never contradict him again. The gentleman wonders how much longer this rain will last, because it's pouring down, and then asks Bernard what he thinks about the attractiveness of the first prince. The assistant doesn't even know what to answer, and the Duke asks if he finds him attractive and tells him not to forget, because he's the only one who thinks about it. Hearing this, Bernard thought that it seemed his master had gone crazy. Zedekiah reports that there is no logic in actions committed in a state of effect, but he wonders that even if this is so, why did she do it? The assistant thought that he was incredibly interested in what he was talking about, but it seemed that if he stayed here, he would find problems for himself. The gentleman reflects that the mental anguish of losing the prince undermined her health and therefore assumes that she is not in her right mind because she did it because she felt lonely. The Duke asks Bernard what he would do if a sick man offered him 100 gold pieces. He replies that of course he would refuse because he would have no idea what kind of money it was. The assistant believes that a sick person cannot make sound decisions, and if someone agrees, then he is just a piece of trash. Zedekiah, hearing this, thought that of course he felt that this kiss was fake, but he understood that since she started this game, he could not help but play along. The man recalls that he was captivated by this smile, and therefore could not resist the temptation to kiss her. The Duke believes that no matter what the temptation, he should not have touched the sick girl, and he cannot believe that his sanity returned only when he saw her stunned face. The gentleman reflects on the fact that he is not a cut and dried block of wood, and has no excuse, but when he now remembers that smile of hers, it seems as if he is going crazy. Zedekiah thought that he even remembered what she was wearing, and most of all he remembered her eyes that shone like stars, and just like Estelle's eyes, Schubert. The gentleman, screaming, offers to tell about the second letter, and at that time thought that he had definitely gone crazy, because just think that he compared an outstanding knight and a young lady. When the assistant read the letter, the gentleman asks what surprised him so much. He replies that Lady Aiden is leaving for a country estate. The maid tells the mistress that she has prepared pillows filled with goose down for her, so that during the trip she can sleep and not worry about anything. The father tells his daughter that she will see precious stones there, and that she should just say which one she likes and have it inlaid into her jewelry. Count Aiden tells Rushi that he is sorry to send her out of town so suddenly. She says that everything is as he said and she is not in the best condition now. The main character thought that she really had gone crazy from the moment she saw Khaled alive and well, and that incident with Zedekiah, she still doesn't understand what came over her. The girl asks to let her come back as soon as she gets better, and then claims that she will not put up with their problems because she understands that he is doing this for her sake, and asks if it is true. The father agrees with her and says that it will be, as she says, the young lady thanks, and says that now her soul is at peace. When Rusi left, she looked at the city and thought that when she returned here, she would no longer behave so stupidly and impulsively. The maid asks the mistress not to be upset because she will try her best to help her return as soon as possible. Loija asks the cab driver in surprise what is going on and why they suddenly stopped, and when she looks out the window, she tells the lady that the second prince is here. Joseph greets the young lady and tells her that he almost parted with her without saying goodbye. Rusi greets His Highness and asks what she owes the honor of seeing him here. He says that as expected, she greets him properly. The prince reports that after she fell and was taken to the mansion, he had no way of finding out how she was feeling, and then asks how her health is. The main character thought that she knew for sure that he contributed to her fainting by hitting her from behind, and she became interested in what he was trying to achieve. The girl says that she is feeling much better and asks what business brought him here. Joseph replies that this is an exclusive edition of the book that he wanted to buy because the author's handwritten copy of the game Inside the Illusion was found recently. And if we talk about the author's poetics, then his viscous, dreamy style of narration and subtle psychological portraits are simply incredible. Rusi thought that he was trying so hard, but he understood that in front of her he didn't have to pretend to be a bookworm. The young gentleman reports that it was a great coincidence because he heard that she was leaving the capital at that very time, and so he hurried here. The lady says that she understands, and the prince says that on that day, the troops of the 2nd Division were training hard, and asks if she remembers the one who stood there below. The girl says that this is rude, and he says that this man helped a lot in resolving the situation with her fainting, and asks if it is worth greeting him, since by a lucky chance he also ended up here. Hearing this, the main character thought that it was enough to make a fool out of her because she understood that he just wanted to make sure that her strange behavior that day was not a simple coincidence, but she believed that he was not underestimating her. The prince calls the Duke of Lewark. He comes up and greets Lady Aiden. She heard and understood that it was the same voice and the same look, and the man says that they haven't seen each other for a long time. The young lady doesn't understand if it's really him and what he's doing here after he finished her off. Joseph looked at the lady and asked what was wrong, and Lewark suggested that it seemed she was still feeling unwell, and then said that he would help her get into the carriage and asked her to give him her hand. At this time, the Duke approaches them and says that he himself will help her. When the girl sees him, she does not understand why he is here. Lewark asks Duke Haint if he is here to see the bride off. He replies that he is, and then greets His Highness. Zedekiah explains that he had no idea that his bride was so close to the second prince that he even came to see her off without his knowledge. Rushi heard this and thought that he was angry, but Joseph claims that it was nothing special because she fainted right in front of his eyes, and therefore he was only worried about her health, and then asks the Duke if he is jealous. Zedekiah asks if it is possible, and then claims that His Highness has no idea what his jealousy looks like, and if he pulls some kind of trick he will not tolerate it, and therefore asks to understand him. The Duke turns to the lady and says that he thinks she is seasick because she looks unwell and does not even have the strength to answer. Luerk heard this. He said that it was very unexpected because he didn't even imagine that the Duke could be like this, because he thought that he was the one who was always cold with women, and therefore he couldn't even imagine that he would be so sensitive. Zedekiah says that he didn't expect something like the way he treats his bride to be something that someone like him would evaluate. The man counters and explains that he meant that it seemed really special. Luerk turns to the lady and says that the Duke Haint is such a generous man and asks if she thinks the same. The fair-haired gentleman asks to forgive him for coming to see her off without taking into account the fact that she has not yet recovered because he wanted to talk to her but does not think that this is possible now and considers it pity. At this time, the main character thought that he would humiliate her when he finished her off and dare to insult her now, and then she thanks him for helping her first of all in the palace, and also thanks him for his high opinion of her fiancé. The men looked at the girl. They realized that her facial expression had changed, and the girl said that he was simply treating her the way a groom should treat a bride. Rusi asks if this was so unexpected, and that alone made her fiancé look like a magnanimous man in their eyes. Zedekiah was surprised to hear this, and he wondered if she was really Lady Aiden whom he knew, because he understood that she always acted so recklessly and could not believe that this lady could control herself so well. Luerk explains that he simply thought that such a warm attitude was quite unexpected, since now he is so different from his former self. The lady says that his words sound as if he has known her fiancé for a very long time, and then asks if it is true that they have known each other for a long time. The man objects and says that he was a Knight of the Alder and thinks that she knows this too, although perhaps she was not interested in such details. At this time, the main character realized that he was trying to be funny and then said that it was not that she had not heard about it at all, but she was interested in something and asked how the Knight of Olshi, who destroyed his native kingdom, was able to make friends among the nobility of Yansgar while in his homeland. Zedekiah thought with surprise that this was a very dangerous statement, although he believed that, who cares after all that he had done, this bastard deserves suspicion. Rushi believes that he had secret connections with Yanagar even before he betrayed her. Luerk angrily says that even though he became a knight of Yansgar, he did not know anyone from this kingdom before the war began. The girl became curious why she should believe the words of the one who cut off her head with his own hands. She understands that she lost everything because of him and no one else, and he lost nothing. The lady became interested in why he was making such a face now, and considered him a shameless bastard, and then informed His Excellency that she did not like it when they tried to deceive her. Rusafella thought that she would not tolerate Khalit's humiliating behavior, and then said that she does not know whether he treats everyone like that or not, but she believes that she should not believe rumors, and mistakenly assume that she is out of her mind. Luerk turns to the lady and says that it seems his sudden friendliness has aroused her suspicions, and therefore he hopes that the young lady will not misunderstand him. Rusi turns to His Highness and informs her that she must take her leave, and he says that it seems that he has kept her too long. The prince says that he is very sorry because he would like to talk to her a little more, and therefore hopes that they will cross paths again soon. The lady says that she hopes so too, and that she will never forget his kindness, and then turns to the Duke and invites him to go with her. The girl tells the Duke that she actually didn't expect him to come, and then asks if he really wants to take her home. Zedekiah claims that she is his fiancée and is going on a long trip, so he thought it was worth at least saying goodbye. Rushi understands that thanks to the fact that he finally came, she was able to calm down because she continued to ask herself the same question. Who is she, Estelle or Rusafella? The main character then saw the harlot and realized that her heart still thirsted for revenge, and she became interested in how she could not be Estelle, because she is Estelle and has not disappeared anywhere. The lady thanks the Duke with all her heart, and he says that he believes that she is not saying this out of ordinary politeness, but he is also sure that she has her reasons for this, and therefore hopes that she will be able to finally sort herself out while she is at the estate. Zedekiah understands that he does not know exactly when they will meet again, but asks him to behave with restraint, because then he will behave as a worthy groom should. The lady screams and asks what else this means, and also wonders if he doubts her restraint. The gentleman explains that he meant to try not to behave as recklessly as last time. Sitting in the carriage, the main character wonders whether the Duke meant their kiss, and then realized that she should have at least apologized for it. Zedekiah thought that the young lady Aiden was acting as if nothing unusual had happened, but he wondered why he was worried about what had happened, but he assumed that maybe she didn't remember anything because of the fever. The Duke understands that even if that were the case, he should have at least apologized. Count Aiden. When he came to the meeting, he asked for forgiveness and asked where he could sit, because the only free seat was next to His Highness. The king claims that this is his place and therefore suggests that they hurry and take it. The first prince asks how things are going with him and asks if he is probably very busy mining precious stones. The count objects and says that he is not that busy since his mine is quite small. His Highness says that even if this is the case, thanks to the fact that his uncle supports him financially, he is always confident about the future. The man agrees with him and says that although the mine is small, he is sure that it will be useful. The prince says that he heard that his daughter is leaving for the estate, and then says that he is sorry because he so wanted to see her at least for a second, but he understands that it was a wise decision because rumors that she has gone crazy have already spread throughout the capital, and therefore he believes that if she stayed here, she would quickly become a real laughing stock. Tamir asks him to forgive him and then says that before they begin the meeting, he would like to do one more important thing. At this time, the guards transferred the maid and she asks to spare her and have mercy on her. The master says that this maid dared to break a bow right in front of his eyes and then asks how she could have acted so carelessly and therefore thinks that she needs to be punished immediately. The prince suggests that his uncle take his time and also look at this, since for him it is akin to entertainment, and then he took a whip and spanked the maid with it. Zedekiah saw the maid. He asked what she had done, that she was flogged in the Knight's Corps. The assistant says that he doesn't think that's the case, because there is a rumor that recently the crown prince has started to abuse the servants. The Duke says that he thought he had become more reasonable, but he still thinks that he is like that. Bernard says that, moreover, it seems that he dragged her to the building itself and flogged her there so that His Majesty would not notice, but he understands that he only mocks dark-haired girls. The assistant reports that this is why all the dark-haired maids tremble with horror and dye their hair, and the state of the Knight's Corps building, which was used as a place of punishment, also does not particularly attract visitors. Zedekiah says that he does not want to get involved in this, but thinks he should say a few words about this matter, and then asks where Duke Lewerk is. Bernard replies that he heard that he was gone for a short time, and it seemed to be for personal reasons, so they have no idea where he went. The Duke thought that the Crown Prince was using the troops of the 2nd Division as he wanted, and he wondered why the division commander had secretly left his post. The gentleman asks which division is now responsible for guarding the main entrance. The assistant explains that these are units of the 2nd Division, and they assume that the reason their people were unable to track him is that he most likely left the capital. Zedekiah became curious about what the imperial dog needed, that he left the capital secretly. At this time, the maid says to the master, "Well, the lady is still sleeping because she thinks that she is in such poor health and the journey to the mansion took so long that she is very tired." The man says that she really looks tired, and the maid thought that in fact after this incident the mistress had insomnia for several days, and she looked as if she was tormented by nightmares, and her face was constantly cramped, and therefore she was constantly worried about her condition. Loija says that it has always been like this. and then asks if he sees her now because she is sleeping soundly with this peaceful expression on her face, and therefore understands that this is such a relief. The maid says that she seemed to be in a good mood on the way here, and thinks that she felt almost carefree and therefore could not sleep peacefully for such a long time, and suggests leaving her. The next day, when the main character woke up, she didn't understand why her back hurt, but she thought it was because she had slept for so long. Rusi can't believe that she is in such a terrible state after a simple ride in a carriage because she has no idea how she managed to survive the encounter with that maniac. The girl thinks that if Liam had just looked at her, he would have died laughing, but she understands that, as she expected, he could not be a serial killer. Yes, of course she was sure that it was not him, but she thinks that it is a pity that she could not meet him. The main character reflects on the fact that he was in another place, which means that he was set up and assumes that they are still alive, and believes that it is enough to just know that they are still alive because she can hope to meet them one day. And that is already a lot. The mistress looked at the dress and said that there were many of them, and the maid, surprised, asked if she really thought so, and then said that the mistress had not been here for so long, so they had prepared for her arrival with all their hearts. The young lady delightedly thinks that everything looks so charming, and as a rule such dresses are used only for imperial balls, and she understands that this mansion is more than luxurious, and she became interested in how the count made such a fortune. The maid says that, as expected, the mistress does not want to wear any of this. Loija reports that the dresses here have gone out of fashion, and they will replace them with new ones that are in keeping with the current times. The lady says that she means that perhaps she should not dress here and therefore asks not to misunderstand her. The main character thought that the maids were upset, and she wondered if she should wear this in gratitude for their sincerity and efforts. Rusi looked at the dress and asked if she should wear it, and the maid said in surprise that it was very old, but the lady said that she liked it and she would take it. The butler tells the lady that she is so tired from the journey that she slept for 3 days, and then asks if she feels well now. The lady claims that she is fine, and he says that it is a relief for him to hear that. The manager explains that they tried to choose the room's decor and clothes for her according to her taste, but it seems that they did not succeed very well, and therefore asks for forgiveness if this is too far from what she is used to in the capital. Rushi tells him not to bow because she doesn't care, because she has no sense of style, so he can't judge all these subtleties of fashion, and asks if it's not clear at first glance at her outfit. The girl says that she thinks this is the same dress that her mother wore, and that's why she took it. The butler says that as he thought the lady looks like a duchess in him, the main character thought about how she knew he would say that, but she didn't care because she felt like she had tricked them all with the face of Rusafella, and then asked if there was anything she had to do here. The manager replies that she simply has to live here in comfort, and the lady says that she understands and asks what she should do then. The young lady thought that first she would have breakfast and then look around the palace. The butler says that she examines everything so carefully and asks what the lady thinks about the state of the estate now that she has not visited it for so long. Rushi replies that she hasn't looked at everything here, but it's a very ancient castle, and so she can't say anything definite yet. The man says that he's sorry. He can't show her a more impressive view. The manager says that a century ago this castle was a barrier between the kingdom of Yansgar and Karayan, and therefore it had great strategic importance, and this castle was built at that time for the purpose of defense, and it is really very ancient. The lady explains that she only said this because he looks like that, and therefore did not mean to reproach him at all, and suggests not to worry about it. The lady says that on the way here she saw that the whole city was surrounded by castle walls, and if you think about it, the construction of just one wall is equal to a whole city in taxes from local residents, and therefore she understands that the costs of building the walls surrounding the city are simply incredible. The girl says that therefore she can assume that this city plays a rather important role. And then she says that it was written this way, and she read about it in a book during her trip here. Rusi says that the carriage ride was so tiring and boring that she had to entertain herself with an even more boring book. Macy says he understands now and is actually surprised that she is so knowledgeable. The lady says that she likes this place more than the luxury of the mansion in the capital, and she thinks that this place is truly impressive because it has a special atmosphere, and she wonders why the mansion in the capital is so pretentious. The butler replies that it is because the Count built it for her mistress, and then asks if she didn't say that she didn't like this castle because it was too old and left for the capital and didn't return here until now. Hearing this, the main character thought about what it meant. The father built such a majestic mansion in the capital simply because his daughter wanted it. The young lady understands that he really did everything to please Roosevelt and thinks that fortunately the Count can afford it, because he definitely does not spare any money when it comes to his daughter. The main character reflects on the fact that he feels a sense of pride for his daughter when he spends money on her. However, when she thinks about the memories of Roosevelt and the emotions that sometimes slip into her consciousness, she is convinced that the manifestation of paternal feelings would be much more valuable than all the money he spent on her. The lady asks if this is true and then says that she doesn't remember it that well because she thinks that in any case people change and now she really likes this place. Macy says that he understands, but the girl doesn't understand what it is because she doesn't think that this is a satisfactory answer, and then asks where the training field is because she would like to visit it. The manager says that the training field is quite far from here, but the wind is getting stronger and it looks like rain is coming, and then asks, "How about Togo taking a tour of the castle today?" Rutzi says that it is a pity because in the morning there was not a single cloud in the sky, and then agrees to this proposal. The butler says that on the left side of the central entrance there is a living room, and a small door next to it leads to the gazebo, and under the stairs there is a storage room and a kitchen. The main character thought about the fact that now, having examined the castle, she sees that there are many places that are often used, and then asks where her father usually stays when he comes here. The manager replies that most often the master spends time outside the castle walls, but when he is here he stays in the library or in a room in the south wing. The lady says she saw the library, but it seems they were not in the south wing. The man explains that he did not take her there on purpose because there is a portrait of the Countess there. Rusi wonders if there is something wrong with the portrait of her mother hanging there, and then says that if there is such a thing there, she would like to see it too. The girl says that if you think about it, her father never said anything about the portrait, and the butler says that it is because it could hurt her. The lady asks in surprise why, and he explains that it is because her mother died. The young lady looked at his expression and thought that he was truly worried about her, and thought that Roosevelt was indeed a spoiled socialite surrounded by love and care. The main character says that she is sure that he heard from his father that she lost her memory, and then says that accordingly she remembers little about her mother, and then says that it does not matter what happened in the past, because it will not break her so easily, so she suggests not to worry. The butler explains that this room is not visited often, so it is quite cold, and he offers her to put on a cape. He says that the room is a bit dark and asks her to wait a minute while he opens the curtains. Messi removes the curtain, and the main character saw a portrait of the lady, and then says that she is so beautiful and asks why she died. The manager explains that she died of measles. The young lady thought that she had seen a man with the disease in the days when she loved to walk in the back alley. The lady says that she heard that it is possible to cure this disease if you do it correctly, and then asks why the father did not take care of this. Macy says that the medicine is too expensive because of the rarity of the plant it contains. Yes, she claims that in that case he just had to buy it, and ask if it was really so expensive that the Count couldn't buy it. The man replies that at that time the girl became interested in whether it was true, and she remembered again. The woman said that she was in pain and asked Louis to help her. The father took her hand and insisted that she would definitely get better because he was doing everything he could to make her feel better. The Count asked Macy if he thought they could get the cure soon, since he understood that Ruana was suffering so much. The butler tells the master that now everything is much more complicated, and he asks in surprise what he means. The manager explains that the medicine was expensive to begin with, but now that the disease has become an epidemic, the price has become inevitably high, and that is why the money they collected was spent so quickly. Hearing this, the father sat down on the floor and said that this could not be, and began to cry because he did not even know where he could earn more money, and then told the butler that he should find a new master. The man asks the owner not to say such things, and suggests that I think about him and worry about the lady. Aiden tells the butler to sell everything he can because he wants to save his wife. At this time, the daughter tells her mother that she will replace her towel, and the servant turns to the young lady and asks her to rest, because he will take care of everything, but the little girl objects and claims that everything is fine because she can handle it. The girl asks Macy where Dad is. He replies that in the mountains near the mansion they found a birthplace of precious stones, and he went there and will soon return with medicine for the lady. The little girl wonders if her mother will get better, and he claims that it will, and suggests that she not worry. Rusi thought that it was great that Mom would get better soon, and she would like Dad to come back sooner. At this time, the mother, screaming in pain, asks to save her, and then screaming suggests simply finishing her off. The girl says that she thinks that her mother has gotten worse, and then asks Macy what they should do next. He asks the lady to wait because he will call the doctor. The daughter turns to her mother and asks her to be patient a little longer, because the doctor will give her a painkiller and her father will bring the medicine when he returns, and therefore asks her to wait for him. The woman turns to the girl and says that she is pleased with her and therefore asks her to ask her father to finish her off, and she begs for this because she believes that she will not be able to recover and she is in a lot of pain. Mother says that she can't stand it anymore and asks her to do it. The little girl asks in surprise what Mother is saying because it hurts her to hear it and her heart is about to break. The lady tells her daughter that she loves her very much, and the girl asks her to get better because she believes that soon everything will be as before. At this time, the father comes into the room and tells Ruana that he finally got the medicine and therefore believes that now she will definitely get better. However, the lady died and the baby does not understand what is wrong with her mother and then turns to her father and asks him to help her save her mother because her mother is not moving. The father realized that his wife had fallen into eternal sleep and then he opened the bottle and drank it. The doctor turns to the little girl and asks her to accept his condolences about what happened to Madame, and then says that at least he managed to give the Count an antidote and help was provided in time, so he is sure that he will soon recover. And when the gentleman came to his senses, he saw his daughter near the bed and then hugged her and asked for forgiveness because he was very sorry. He realized that he had done something stupid because he still had a daughter. The father says that he is the only one left for her and explains that he then seemed to have lost his mind and therefore asks to forgive him and then promises that this will never happen again. Macy asks the lady if everything is okay with her. She claims that everything is fine because she just remembered something, and at that time she realized that it was the death of her mother and her father's attempt to commit suicide. The young lady understands that if only the birthplace had been found a little earlier, then this tragedy would not have happened, and she cannot imagine what a blow it was for the 9-year-old girl. The main character believes that it was here that everything happened, and now she understands why she was so eager to escape from here. Rushi reflects on the confusion the Count must have felt when he witnessed the death of his own wife. Joseph turns to the Duke and invites him to take a look at these books because here are the hottest new releases in the Greenfill book world. The gentleman says that he especially recommends this book because it is a wonderful novel about a knight who found his love, and this book will make anyone cry. Zedekiah says that it is clear to him, and the prince shoves the book in his face and says that it is enough to be an amoeba, and then claims that this is a real masterpiece. The Duke knocks the book away, and the young gentleman claims that he is very rude because he thought that Seti was bored, so he selected the pearls of his collection for him. The captain says that he thought that the prince came to play his cheap show in front of him, and then claims that no matter how bored he is, he will not play his stupid games. Joseph says that in that case he believes that he would prefer to see Lady Aiden in his place, and asks if that is not so. Zedekiah says that he does not understand why he even made up for her now, and the blonde man asks in surprise why he had such a reaction. The captain tells him to shut up and then asks him what he wants. Joseph tells him that Lady Aiden is truly a mysterious person and asks what has happened to her lately, as he believes she has suddenly changed. The prince asks if this doesn't seem a little strange to him, because no matter how much he thinks about it, he feels that the puzzle doesn't fit together, and as he already mentioned, he hides his swordsmanship skill perfectly. Zedekiah asks if it ever occurred to him that his carelessness was to blame for everything, and the young gentleman explains that it was the first time he had been able to speak to her alone. The fair-haired guy says that only he and his closest circle know this secret, and believes that they are all loyal to him, so there can be no talk of information leakage. And in this case, the question arises how the lady guessed Joseph says that he thought about it for a long time and finally found the answer, and then says that it's all about his hand, because one day he accidentally touched her hand and thinks that it must have been then that she noticed his calluses. The prince claims that this is the only reasonable explanation, because he also thought that the reason was that he was easily carrying a stack of books, but he realizes that this is not enough to come to such a conclusion, and then asks what Sadie thinks about this. The Duke asks if this means that he groped Lady Adine's hands and hid it from him so well. Hearing this, the gentleman thought about what it meant that out of everything he had said, only this was of concern to him, and then he claimed that he had thought so that he was indeed interested in her and believed that Sadie was incorrigible. The captain reminds him that he already told him to leave her alone, and also his dear brother. Joseph says that, by the way, his brother is now under house arrest and asks how he thinks why. The gentleman says that he only contributed a little and the smallest. Hearing this, the prince asks in surprise how he did it, and the man explains that he reported that his highness was mocking the servants to the king. The young gentleman reports that he assumed that this was all a show for Lady Adine, since he only chose dark-haired ones, but he never expected that he would put an end to it. Sadie thought that he had already assumed that this asshole already knew everything. Joseph asks why his brother suddenly went crazy because he understands that no matter how obstinate he is, there must be a reason for such behavior, and then asks if he knows anything about what happened between his brother and Lady Adine. The Duke only remained silent in response, and the guy said that he of course had his own assumptions, and asked how he, the crown prince, could harass the count's daughter. Zedekiah is surprised and asks what he means. The prince says that he has found out where Duke Luerk is now, and that he seems to be staying in one of the villages belonging to Count Adine, and then asks Zedekiah if he understands what is happening. When the Duke heard this, he quickly left, and the young gentleman said that he had abandoned the guest alone and considered him an ignoramus. Joseph reflects on the fact that his brother may look smart, but in reality he is still a fool because he lacks prudence. In addition, he is full of greed, and if he had a little more brains, he would not have pursued the count's daughter so persistently, and would have finished him off instead. The Duke asks his assistant if there is a letter from Lady Adine. He replies that there are no letters. Zedekiah says that 2 weeks have passed since her departure and thinks that she should have arrived several days ago, but there is still no news from her, and he asked her to observe the duties of a bride, but of course it was useless. The captain thought that maybe something happened to her on the way, and he felt he had to make sure that she was okay. Bernard heard this and asked how he was going to do it. The gentleman says that he recently received a report that enemy spies were spotted in the northeast, and in the end it is he who must deal with such things, and therefore he understands that it is a coincidence that he also has business in this region. The assistant asks if this is not what he thinks, and the captain says that it is. He is going to war and orders everything to be prepared. Bernardo thought that he was surprised that he lasted longer than usual, and acted as if nothing had happened. The assistant thought that Duke Hint Sr. always remained in the capital and was engaged in training troops, but the young master left there at any convenient opportunity, and it seemed that they were father and son, but very different. The gentleman says to prepare everything as quickly as possible, because they will set out as soon as they report everything to the king. The guy asks if they have ever heard of a black lion from the battlefield, and then says that this is what the eldest son of the Haint family from Ansgar was named. Collett believes that there is hardly anyone who has not heard this nickname, and it is clearly embellished. Eugen says that he had no doubt that he knew about him well because they had recently cut off Ansgar's supply routes, and therefore he thought that everything was going well, but the war dragged on, so he was also called to the battlefield. The guy says that he heard that his family is training the strongest fighters and thinks that this will cause them a lot of trouble, and then turns to Anika and says that it's enough to sleep wherever you fall. Collett reports that since we are talking about the level of preparation, they also did everything in their power to keep up with them, and therefore believes that there is nothing to worry about. The girl screaming says that they are not lagging behind them because in any weather, be it snow or rain, they train, and naturally every day they try to keep up with them, and if they drop dead from exhaustion tomorrow, no one will be surprised, and believes that therefore they will never lose to their young master. Walter tells Annika to calm down. The guy thinks that she is right because their commander is as strict as ever, and that is why he brought her some water. She asks him in surprise what is wrong with him and asks if he thinks that this is easy for her. Anika says that they are knights who protect Olsha, and no matter how difficult it is for them, they should always be grateful to His Majesty the King and be proud that they can serve him. The captain claims that they are obliged to fulfill their duty to the Bolshoi. The main character thought that she remembers that once there was a border here, but now everything has changed, and she thinks that in the end they are not residents of Olsha, and she has nothing to do with them. The girl looked at the men and did not understand what was happening here because she understood that she did not expect that in such a remote area there would be soldiers like those that the Hint family was preparing, and she became interested in how they even dared to consider themselves knights. The man asks the lady what she means by saying that they are fooling around because it seems to him that she simply misunderstood everything and that they are only taking a short break. Rusi asks if he means Gwaine is the commander of the knights and then says that no matter how she understands it, it doesn't look like they guys are training hard, but she assumes that everything is as he says. Since he is in charge of training the knights, she has no right to interfere. The lady says that she would like to know the condition of the weapon and what is wrong with it since she believes that it cannot even cut a sheet of paper. Gwaine turns to the lady and asks if she thinks that their weapons are in such a deplorable state now because most of the budget goes to her dresses. Hearing this, the main character thought that he was trying to shift his responsibility onto others and then turned to Sir Macy and offered to answer whether it was true that because of her purchase of dresses, there were no funds left for military expenses. The butler objects and says that this is not the issue since the Count simply believes that the estate is quite calm, so if he cuts back on the knights, nothing terrible will happen. The lady asks the knights if they heard what the Count said and then wonders what her dress has to do with it. The captain wonders if it's not obvious and then says that they say her new dresses cost a fortune. He thinks that if that money was spent on their squad, they wouldn't have to use these old clothes. The girl asks if that means she should ask her father to increase military spending. He claims that even if she asks him, he won't do it, because the Count thinks it's just a waste of money. Rusi reports that there were only excuses, and in the end he only did what he complained hiding behind her dresses, and did not even try to change anything, and then asks if she is right. The captain bowed his head and asked to forgive him, and the girl turned to Maisie and offered to leave her a couple of dresses and sell the rest, and asked to tell the Count to increase spending on the knights. The ladies claim that he is using her dress as an excuse, and therefore thinks the best solution is to sell them, and then asks if everything is clear. The lady reports that this money will go towards military needs, and therefore they must now obey all her orders since she has made such sacrifices. The maid asks the young lady in surprise why she did this, and then says that this knight scared her because he was so angry. Ruchi explains that this is all done on purpose to irritate him, because he understands that the knight will never listen to what a girl, who has never even held a sword in her hands, tells him and asks if she agrees with her. Loija says that she doesn't think so, and then says that she explained everything to them and therefore is sure that they will not dare to disobey her. Ruchi believes that in any case, the military is too stubborn, and if you need to prove something to them, you need to hit their pride. She says that now they will have to train tirelessly to show her that she is wrong. The lady says that she has already looked around the entire castle but thinks that it is probably not worth going out in public yet. The butler asks if she is talking about the nearest villages and wonders what is wrong. The main character says that she doesn't think that such poorly trained knights will be able to protect her when she goes out to the people, and thinks that it could be dangerous because there are very few of them. The man asks her in surprise if she is afraid of evil spirits, and then suggests not to worry because they don't come here. Ruchi explains that she is not talking about that, and then asks what if the peasants decide to attack them, because she is sure that they will not be happy with strangers. The girl reports that she will need at least 24 knights. Well, considering their level of training, even if the number of guards is increased, it will be necessary to remain vigilant. Macy asks why the lady thinks she will be attacked, and then claims that it will never happen. The young lady understands that this is impossible because all commoners without exception hate the nobility, and in childhood she constantly encountered this attitude. The lady says that they have just been lucky so far and believes that caution here would not hurt, and then asks why they don't take a walk so that they can see everything for themselves. Rusi asks if his father manages the estate well. The manager replies that he doesn't really, because in fact the Count isn't very good at it. The girl understands that nevertheless there are no poor people here, and everyone is well dressed and their houses are cozy. The man says that he does not know what books she has read, but the real world is different from the fictional one. The lady asks if that is why her father cut the military budget. He says that is true, and then asks if she would like to go for a walk and get out of the carriage, and then claims that everything will be fine. Macy suggests that the lady take a walk because further along this road, they will see unusually beautiful landscapes. The young lady wonders whether the lands became rich because of the precious stones, or whether the entire country became rich because of the victory in the war. The butler explains that thanks to the mines, it has become calmer here, because stability has come, but the standard of living itself has remained the same, and not as many precious stones are mined here as she thinks. The man reports that Connaught has always been like this, but the war has not affected it in any way, and moreover, since someone is sent from the capital every year to inspect it, they cannot be negligent in managing the estate. Hearing this, the main character was surprised and thought that this was something new, because everything she knows, what she has experienced, her life, her environment, politics, social status, everything is strikingly different, and what was considered self-evident for Estelle is no longer relevant here. The girl realizes that her knowledge is still stuck in Poland, and therefore it will be hard if this continues, and then tells Sir Macy that she still doesn't remember anything. The man says that he knows and suggests the young lady not to overexert herself. She says that she cannot see too much. She must learn and claims that she needs knowledge and asks if he can help her with it. The main character thought about how she should now live as a citizen of Janskar, and then asks the butler what he will teach her today. Macy says that first he needs to tell her something, and then explains that there is a trading company called Tarot, and since ancient times it has been dealing with precious stones, and this time they are going to make a deal with them again, and that is why they wanted the lady to be present. Hearing this, the girl asks in surprise why he explains that she, the mistress, has returned to the estate for the first time in a long time, and that is why they want to personally express their respect to her. Russi asks if they just want to greet her and wonders if even if she comes she won't have to decide anything. The butler explains that if she talks about a deal, then they will take care of everything themselves, but unfortunately, they cannot take her opinion into account in such matters. The lady thinks that it doesn't look like they are so keen to get favorable terms, and then asks why traders who only care about profits and losses insist on her visit. Macy knows it's probably because of the rumors, and the girl asks if that's what they're saying, that she's crazy. The maid says she shouldn't say that. The young lady believes that if she doesn't go out into the world, the rumors will continue to spread, and then she says that she agrees because she always wanted to visit the mine at least once. Russi asks if these are precious stones, and that means they are just collected like that, and then asks about the shady tunnels. The man explains that there is nothing like that here, and whoever comes here for the first time always expects something grandiose. Macy reports that what these workers collect are precious stones, and sapphires are also being collected. The girl asks in surprise whether this ball, which is even smaller than a grain eye, is a precious stone, and does this mean that they are being finished off from the opposite side of the mountain? The butler explains that the deposits of precious stones are only here, and that mystical creatures live on the other side, so no one goes there. The main character asks why they didn't gather an army and exterminate them, and at that time she thought that they probably weren't used to solving problems as much as they did, but she thinks that even if that were the case, there must be a reason. Russi understands that no matter what she regrets, that she never saw the mine, and she cannot believe that precious stones are collected so easily without any effort. After all, it is amazing how such trifles bring enough money to build a mansion in the capital. The servant informs the lady and Sir Macy that the representatives of the Tarot have arrived. The commander says it is an honor to see her young mistress. Macy says it is a pleasure to meet him, and the man says that the gentleman who usually does business with them was unable to attend, and he is Mr. Shane, a new arrival, and therefore is performing his duties. And the gentleman shows the power of attorney and offers to check it. The butler says that everything is fine, and therefore asks for forgiveness for his tactlessness because he believes that extra caution never hurts, especially in trade. Shane says that he understands everything because it is extremely important. At this time, the main character counted his guards and then quietly turns to Sir Macy and says that it is disrespectful to the other side to bring a lot of guards, and that is why they took only 5 and they have almost 20 here, and then asks if this is not a direct insult. The butler says that there are definitely more of them than usual, but probably many of them are just workers who have to transport precious stones, and so he tells her not to worry and then asks if they can get down to business. Shane asks them to wait a bit and says that before they get started, he asks if he can suggest something. He says that, to be honest, due to unforeseen circumstances, their foreman and appraiser have not arrived yet, and then asks, how about Togo walking around town and chatting while they wait for them? The man says that given their quality, they would buy everything right now and without inspection, but he thinks that it would be very problematic if rumors started that they accepted the goods without an appraiser, and if they leave now, they will get to the city at the same time as him, and then asks if the deal could be concluded right there. The butler explains to the lady that this happens when a large batch of goods is sold, and claims that there is nothing wrong with it. The driver looks at her in surprise and doesn't understand how this happened. Shane says that what happened is what happened, and then tells the young lady that it looks like her carriage has a cracked wheel. The servant claims that when they left, everything was fine with him, and suggests that maybe they ran over some rock on the road, and then says that he is very sorry because the repair will take some time. The gentleman asks why wait, and then says that his cart is at her disposal, and asks if they shouldn't help each other out at such moments. Rusi says that there is no need for this, and suggests that he not worry because she will go on a horse, and with Sir Macy. The butler objects, and says that it would be better for her in a carriage because he knows that it is not easy to ride on horseback along mountain paths. The gentleman tells the lady not to be afraid, and offers to ride together. The girl says that in any case it will only take 2 hours, and therefore thinks that it is not a big deal. And Macy says that the gentleman is right, and asks to get into her carriage. However, the main character insisted on her own and rode on a horse with the butler. Macy asks the lady if she is tired and thinks it would be better if she moves to the carriage. Rusifella explains that getting into a cart is like being in the middle of an enemy camp without reinforcements, and thought that maybe she was being too suspicious. The girl objects and says she is fine, and then asks how she can get into a carriage with a man she barely knows, and then turns to the man and says he seems completely calm. Suddenly, bandits appeared on their way, but the girl was not afraid, and then the massacre began. At this time, the gentleman says that it is already 2:30 and they are late, and then asks if he thinks that something is wrong. The man agrees with him, and says that they really should have returned by now, and thinks that perhaps they should go after them. The captain says that they might offend the merchants if there are too many people on their side. Arthur became curious about what could have gone wrong since this is not the first time they have worked with them. The servant turns to the commander and says that guests have arrived, but Sir Macy is not here, and therefore he should meet them. Arthur, surprised, asks what guests he is talking about, and wonders if the emperor himself has really arrived, and then asks if that is why he was so scared. Zedekiah approaches them and asks where the young lady is. Seeing him, the captain was surprised because he realized that this was indeed the Duke of Hint himself, and he was seeing him for the first time, but he knew that he was engaged to their mistress. The assistant turns to the commander and asks him to answer his question. Arthur says that she recently went to the mountain to conclude a deal to sell precious stones. The gentleman asks when she will return. He replies that they usually return around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but today, for some reason, she is late. Zedekiah asks how many people are with her. The captain replies that there are 5. Hearing this, the Duke is surprised and says that the lady went there personally, and there are only so few people with her. The gentleman says that since they should have returned a long time ago, he asks why they are still here, and also wonders if they should not protect their masters, and then offers to immediately take him to the place of the deal. At this time, the butler tells the lady to give him the reins because he will lead the horse because he thinks it is dangerous. At this time, the girl does not know what to do because the sounds of the chase are approaching and they cannot run away forever. Rushi remembered that precious stones are mined from the opposite side of the mountain and that mystical creatures live on the other side, so no one goes there. The lady turns the horse around, and seeing this, the man screams and says that this is the descent on the other side. She says that she knows, and then asks if he understands that they are already waiting at the foot, and thinks that this way they can gain at least a little time. The girl understands that there is no one else here, and then says that they will be easily found by the trail, and therefore thinks that it would be wiser to continue on foot. Macy says that it's lucky that she didn't get into their wagon. She agrees with him because she understands that if she were there, she would either have been killed or kidnapped, and they need her. The servant asks in surprise why she thinks so, and she asks if it's not obvious. The lady claims that they insisted on her presence at this deal, and if they were interested in the precious stones, they would have stolen them long ago, but they are still pursuing them because she is their target. The girl reflects on the fact that they have thought everything through carefully and even disguised themselves as a large trading company, and understands that they are well prepared so that they will be able to follow them for a long time. But because of the creatures, they will not immediately decide to come here, but they will still catch up with them very soon. Having heard this, the man realized that they were clearly not simple robbers, and they were interested in who they were. Macy is informed that because of the rumors, they will not immediately chase after them, and therefore believes that during this time, they will be able to hide somewhere and hold out until their knights suspect something is wrong and come to the rescue. However, the young lady objects and explains that they can't just wait for them, and then asks if they've ever reacted to anything in time, and says that they have no choice but to get out of this mess themselves. The girl says that the river they saw on the way here goes around the mountain on the left side, and asks if that is true. Then she says that it looks too deep, and even if they can cross the mountain, there will be a dead end ahead. Ruchi thinks that if they are lucky, they will find shelter, but if they encounter monsters or bandits, they will have to run away. The man says that he does not think that they will meet even one monster. And the lady looked at him in surprise and asked what he was talking about. Macy asked to just take his word for it and not ask him anything else about it. Rusifella asks if he is spreading these rumors on purpose. The butler answers that it is so, and the girl thinks that he is unlikely to answer her if she asks about it now, because she understands that they do not have time for this now. The lady insists that they need to go. At this time, the robber screams and says that he found them, and then points with his finger that they are there. Macy turns to the lady and tells her to save herself, and he will buy her time. The bandits scream and say that they are trying to escape again, and then offer to surrender since they know that this small dagger will not help her against a crowd of enemies, and besides, the Count will not survive if something happens to her. At this time, the girl running away thought that she was helpless and thought that if she had the same strength as before, but at this time, the robber grabbed her by the hair and claimed that she was caught. The man asks if she thought she could run away from him. She has such thin legs, and then screaming, he says that everyone was coming here because he caught her. The thief claims that they went so far because of her, although all these rumors about monsters scared them. At this time, the monster was watching them, and the robber asked in surprise what these sounds were. The young lady thought that she had heard them before, and therefore thought that it could not be. Rusi remembered that Sir Macy said that it was all a fabrication, and she became interested in where they came from and realized that she needed to get out of here right now. The girl bit the robber on the hand and then quickly ran away. He screamed and said that he saw her run into the bushes and then screamed and said that she wouldn't get far. At this time, a monster attacked the robbers, and the girl from the bushes realized that it was a growl. And she was right, because she knows that this is a Rinix monster of the highest class. The main character thinks that she is lucky because it is the smell of these thickets that the Rinix cannot stand, and thinks that she is saved. However, she does not understand how this happened at all, because Sir Macy assured her that there are no monsters. Suddenly, someone's hand grabbed the girl by the mouth, and she thought it was an ambush, and immediately began to look for the dagger, and she became interested in whether she had dropped it. The man tells the lady to be quiet, and upon hearing this voice, the girl realized that he was Khalit. The man says that he is Rude Luark, and he is not sure that she remembers him, and then suggests not to make any sudden movements because it is dangerous, and not to scream when he lets her go, otherwise they will both die. Rushi thought that she already knew this, but she was thinking that maybe it would be better for her to do the opposite and drag him with her to the next world. Khalit looked at the monster that was approaching them and said that he noticed them, and then asked if she never thought that such a stupid death awaited her. The main character understands that she must calm down because she will not take revenge on him if they simply die here. She understands that Sir Macy and the knights sacrificed themselves for her, and therefore she cannot die in vain with him. The gentleman tells her not to even think about screaming and then takes his hand from her lips. The lady says that the Rhynyx is impatient and will soon get bored and leave. The blonde guy says that they will not have to wait long and so they will go when he is out of sight. At this time, the Duke and the captain arrived at the scene of the incident, and the captain asked in surprise what had happened here. Zedekiah thought that they were attacked and they were unable to fight back, and the hoofprints of the lead horse suddenly became deeper, and it looked like it had run away, and then the others followed it. The Duke orders the first detachment of knights to follow the horses, and to watch carefully, and also to pay attention and be vigilant. Hallett says that it looks like the monster gave up and left and therefore thinks that it is already possible to go out. He looked around and says that apparently he is still somewhere nearby, but even so they will be able to go down to the foot without problems. The lady says that she knows, and she doesn't need to explain all this, and at that time, she thought that she doesn't even want to listen to him. The man asks if she really started talking to him in full sentences as expected, and then reminds him that she used to only answer in monosyllables. The young lady hearing this realized that she had blurted it out without thinking, and then asked him if he was sure that now was the right time for such conversations, because she didn't know that it was so important to him. Ruchi reports that she thought he became a knight of Yansgar only because the rules did not apply to him. Halit asks if she understands who is protecting her now and suggests that it would be better to keep quiet. The main character says that she thinks that the crown prince should be thanked for this and asks if that is so because she believes that it is because of him that he is now in such an unpleasant situation. The girl asks what surprised him so much and whether he ever wondered why she didn't even ask how he ended up here, and wonders if he thinks she's a fool. Rusi reports that no matter how you look at it, this stupid idea undoubtedly belongs to the crown prince, and therefore knows that he sent his dog here. Collett looked angrily at the lady and said that she should choose her words, and she wondered if he would even deny it. The main character says that she can guess, and then asks if he is going to meet with those bandits, but understands that the monsters have already dealt with them, and therefore all his efforts are in vain. The lady says that all this is to kidnap just one girl and then wonders if the Knights of Olsha have no honor left at all. Hearing this, the man grabbed the girl and asked why some lady should tell him about knightly honor, and wondered how one could be so arrogant. The little girl asks if this is his vaunted knightly honor, and also wonders if he likes killing the weak and then suggests just cutting her throat quickly. Collett heard a growl from the mountain. A monster was watching them, and they wondered when he managed to return. The gentleman realized that they needed to hide and then stood behind a tree. The girl says that he is earlier than they expected, and there are no more of those thickets here. But fortunately, they are on the plain, and therefore predicting his movement will not be difficult. The young lady realizes that there are many flowers here, and she hopes that this will weaken the Rhynyx's sense of smell. Rushi looked at the monster and did not understand what he was doing, but he knew that he was clearly not enjoying the aroma, and she became interested in whether he was following the smell of the robber's red liquid. The main character understands that now it is pointless to run away, and therefore it will be better to distract his attention, and when the monster looks at her, the Hallett will have to attack him. The girl went out to the monster, but when she looked towards the guy, she realized that he was not there and thought that she was a fool because she did not understand how she could believe him. The lady remembers that once they were attacked by monsters and the guy screamed and said that they could no longer hold them back, and Khalid is the same idiot and must have escaped. The captain turns to Estelle and says that she is from the Gabrain family just like Khalid and asks if this is true. Then he claims that the man simply ran away and asks what it feels like to be abandoned. Estelle objects and screams, saying that he is wrong because he could not have disappeared without a reason. Eugen says that she is still naive and asks how she can talk about such things now because they will all die. At this time, the girl finished off the monster and asks the knight if he is okay. The captain turns to the girl and tells her to come to her senses quickly if she doesn't want to die like that guy. At this time, the young lady thought that it would be okay if she died here and thought that perhaps these were the last minutes of her life, and he was not around, and she wondered if he really ran away to save himself. Estelle does not understand how he could betray her, and at that time she saw a Halit on the mountain, and then joyfully asks if he came and claims that she knew. Halit asks Estelle if she got hurt, and then claims that he should have been more careful because he left without explaining anything to her because he was in too much of a hurry. The girl hugs the guy and asks him to forgive her because for a moment, just for a moment, she lost faith in him, and therefore she is very sorry that she could not trust him, and therefore she will understand if he is angry with her. Halit says that she is his only friend, and every time she loses faith in him and therefore calls herself poor, and then asks if she will believe him if he takes an oath and seals it with 5 temple seals, Estelle thinks he speaks well because he constantly makes her doubt, and he says that her guilty face always amuses him, and the girl reminds him that she asked him not to treat her like a fool. The main character understands that every time he questioned her faith, and in the end, she died. At this time, the lady understands that she is doomed because she behaved like an idiot and now stands in front of the monster. Suddenly, the Halit attacks the monster and the young lady realizes that it was a dying attack and then tells the wounded guy to come to his senses because she knows that he was never like that and would never sacrifice himself for a stranger. Rusi doesn't understand what she's saying because she wanted to finish him off and therefore thinks that she can't just leave him here because then he'll die from the loss of the red liquid. The girl thought that if she did this, she wondered when she would get another chance like this. She thought that if he died now, it would be just an accident and not real revenge, and moreover, his death would be considered worthy because he died defending a young lady. The main character thinks about the fact that he will be called a true knight, and she does not want to allow this, and therefore decides to save him and then finish him off as expected. The lady tore his shirt and then closed the wounds. Halit asks how long he was unconscious. She replies that she didn't really stop the bleeding, and then says that he needs to get up so she can apply a bandage. The man asks why she saved him, and also wonders if she didn't think that he wanted to harm her, and then says that if he were in her place, he would have left her to die. Rusi thought that she had thought about this too, and would only be glad if he died here. The fair-haired guy touched his shoulder and thought that he was always wondering where she got the bandages, but now it was clear, and then he said that the lady was really smart and everything was as she said. Halit reports that the crown prince ordered her to be kidnapped and secretly taken to the capital, and then asks how much he hates her. Rusi says that she didn't even imagine that he was so pathetic, and asks why she should tell him this since his honesty took him by surprise. The gentleman says that it is probably because they will not get out of here alive since the cubs came to them. Halit took the sword and told the lady to stay behind him, and then said that even though they were small, they were still Rhinixes. At this time, the main character does not understand how he is trying to protect her, and believes that he is pretending to be a knight, and therefore wants him to stop being such a hypocrite because she is already tired of it. The guy asks if she wants to say something before she dies. Hearing this, the main character thinks that he might know who she is. And at this time, the monsters attacked them, but Duke Zedekiah came in time and helped them deal with them. Rusi asks in surprise what he is doing here, and he takes off his coat and says that the sun is setting and she will freeze in such a dress, and offers her to put it on herself. The lady looked at the wounded man and said that they helped the Luwak because he was badly hurt. The captain turns to the lady and says that it is fortunate that she is okay. She replies that she is safe and then asks if they have found Sir Macy's body. Gwaine reports that fortunately the butler is alive, and with proper care he will quickly recover. Hearing this, the girl thought that thank God everything worked out, and at that moment she dropped her cloak. The Duke decided to help her, and the girl asked in surprise what was wrong. He claimed that everything was fine and it looked like everything was in order, and therefore there was no reason to worry, and then offered her to hold and put the cloak back on. The gentleman says that if she does not have the strength to reach the cart, then she should just tell him she asks why and whether he is going to carry her in his arms. The girl asks if he is worried about her, and the gentleman claims that she said so herself. At this time, the captain of the knights was watching them and thought about how he could not worry, but she could not even imagine that if it took him 2 hours to catch up with her, then the Duke from the capital had to travel for several days. Zedekiah says that he asked her to get into the cart, and she says that it is more comfortable for her and offers to go. The gentleman asks what he will order him to ride on if she is sitting on his horse, and the girl asks if he is not with her, and should he really allow the lady to ride alone. When they arrived at the estate, the servant worriedly asks his lordship what's wrong. He suggests speaking more quietly since she's simply tired and fallen asleep, and asks to be escorted to her room. Zedekiah put the girl on the bed and thought that if he was even a moment late, something irreparable could happen, and therefore he thinks that it is good that he took the knights with him, and although it seemed unnecessary, the Duke reflects on the fact that he is upset that she was only concerned about this idiot, and she didn't even thank him because he prepared the crew especially for her. The servant turns to his lordship and asks for forgiveness, and then asks how they can address the wounded gentleman from the carriage. He replies that it is Duke Lewerk. Zedekiah tells the lady that 3 days have passed and that she has finally gotten up. Rushi asks in surprise if she has slept for so long again, and then claims that thanks to him she has only slept for a few days and not an eternity. Lewerk is feeling. The servant replies that while he is resting and having lunch, he is also alone. The Duke says that he locked him in the room, and the lady asks in surprise why he claims that it is obvious that all this is extremely suspicious, because the Lewerk came here for no reason and she got into trouble. The lady asks how his wound knows that it is deep. The gentleman replies that he called the doctor and therefore he will live. Rusi says that she thinks he is right because even she finds it suspicious, and then says that Duke Lewerk saved her. Zedekiah explains that this is why he is not in prison now. The girl screams and asks who allowed him to rule here as he pleases. The Duke explains that she was unconscious, and the Viscount was seriously wounded, and that is why he had to deal with everything himself. And she also asks who allowed him to do this. Rusi looked at him and then said that she shouldn't have said that, and it's not that she's not grateful, because she's very grateful for the help. The gentleman asks if she wants to continue to please the Crown Prince. Hearing this, the young lady is surprised, and he says that she knows whose pawn he is, and then asks why she still wants to help him. Zedekiah says that she understands that she had to go through all this horror because of the Crown Prince, and therefore believes that she should have tried harder if she wanted to hide her feelings, and says that she deceived him again. The Duke claims that from the look on her face she understood what he meant, but it doesn't seem to bother her in the least. The main character assures that it is just a misunderstanding, and the man says that he hopes she remembers that he is not a replacement for the Crown Prince. Rushi, screaming, asks if he is in his right mind, and if he thinks that she is in love with the one who broke her heart and turned away from her, and then reminds him that she told him that she was completely indifferent to him. The Duke wonders why she then threw herself off the palace balcony and whether it wasn't because of the Crown Prince. The lady asks to be allowed to ask how this incident is connected with him, and asks if maybe she just wanted to die, and maybe she really is crazy. The main character says that there are a whole host of reasons why she could have done this, and asks why he thinks that it is all about the Crown Prince. Zedekiah says in surprise that if she really has no feelings for him, then she cries out and asks why. Rusi explains that she has her own reasons for this, and considering what she did before she understands why he thinks this way, but even so, she is interested in what he has to do with it now and asks why he can't stop making a mountain out of a molehill. The man replies that it is because he is her fiance, and of course he is worried. She says that since this misunderstanding has been sorted out, she offers to eat. The lady says that she will go first and asks where Duke Lewerk is. The servant answers that he is on the 3rd floor. The Duke grabs the girl and asks if she wants to visit him and also wonders why. The lady reminds him that she already said that he suffered while trying to save her, and then asks if he is happy, and therefore hopes that now everything is clear. Zedekiah does not understand what is going on because this is the first time he has had such a feeling, and he does not know why he suddenly remembered Joseph's words, that he still continues to doubt and cannot believe his beloved, and therefore he thinks that it seems that he is behaving just like that stupid guy. The gentleman thought that he had acted rationally, and he wondered if he had been wrong, but he didn't know why, but after her words he felt relieved. When the girl entered the room, Hatitu then saw him reading a book and thought that this is how she remembers him and that he still loves to read. A man approaches a lady and asks if she has come to see him. The girl explains that she just wanted to visit him. The guy says that, as she can see, he is still in pain, but he can already move a little because the wound is not fatal. The main character remembers that he used to smile in exactly the same way and thinks that nothing has changed, but he is no longer the one she knew. Halit says that it is so boring to be locked up and thinks that it would be nice if she visited him earlier. The little girl explains that she just woke up, and he says that since she is here, it means that she has already fully recovered. The lady says that he seemed worried, and the man smiled and explains that he actually wanted to ask something, and that's why he was waiting for her, and then asks if by any chance she had ever been trained by the knights. Hearing this, the main character was surprised and thought that they were finished, and almost told who she was, but still held back and assumed that that bastard suspected something. Rushi wonders why he's asking. The guy replies that it's because he saw something impossible under normal circumstances, and in the end, she got out of that mess thanks to her own strength, and asks if that's true. Halit explains that he needs to somehow explain everything to the Crown Prince. The lady says that it looks like it, and then says that he said that he came to kidnap her and does not understand where he got so much loyalty to the Crown Prince considering his orders. The lady says that he has not a drop of knightly honor left, and he claims that she has started this hilarious hurdy-gurdy again, and they think that there is nothing more stupid, but this is just empty babble because a knight serves as someone's sword all his life, and only a senseless death awaits him, and this is not for him. Hearing this, the main character was surprised because she wondered if he was proud of this, and then she remembers that he always shared her views and she does not know what he is really like, so he took her life to save himself and stay on top. The girl thinks about how he saved her from the monster, and she completely forgot what a bastard he really is, but now she knows for sure his true appearance. Rusi thinks that if she reveals to him that she is Estelle, she wonders how he will react and whether he will try to finish her off again. The lady says that he is free and can go if he is bored here, and the Halit thanked the lady, and she says that she hopes that she will never meet him again, and therefore asks to leave as soon as possible. The man says he heard her and then waves his hand. At this time in the palace of the Crown Prince Temir, when he heard the latest news, he screamed and asked what kind of idiot you have to be to screw everything up. The man suggests that His Highness calm down and then says that everything was ruined by the sudden visit of the Duke of Haint. Vavant says it seems he is still trying to track it down, and one way or another it seems the tarot trading organization will soon be disbanded. His Highness thought that her idiot father was groveling before him, and he didn't understand what was wrong with this girl and why she was going against him because she thought that it was really ruining everything. The prince remembered that his father had told him that he had done something stupid again, and therefore he would like his son to be at least half as good as Duke Hint. Timur thought that he had been hearing this since childhood and was punished after this idiot met his father, and therefore understands that this is unlikely to be a coincidence. The prince reflects on the fact that very soon he will wipe the smug grin off the Duke of Haint's face. The lady says that today it is also crowded here and she does not know the owner personally, but this store is incredibly popular among the aristocracy because the most fashionable clothes in the city are sold here. The woman reports that it seems they forgot to check that part of the street, and once they are done with it, they will be free to go. The guy invites Annika to look at what this woman is holding in her hands, since she is wearing exactly the same dress, and asks why she needs to buy the same thing. The girl offers the commander to look at the frills because they are completely different, and the ribbons are sewn on differently, but he claims that he doesn't understand anything. Annika claims that everything is fine because they don't need to know about such things, and therefore the commander will only be able to understand fashion in 100 years. Eugen says that it looks like she still has more than enough strength because she has enough for empty chatter, and therefore orders her to start special training from tomorrow. Annika tells the commander that she was wrong. The Duke asks the lady what she is doing and whether she has gone out for some fresh air this morning. She replies that she is exercising and asks if it looks like she is just taking a walk. He says that she is doing well because exercise is good for everyone. The man asks why she needs to train and whether she doesn't trust her knights, but although he understands her considering that they couldn't protect her, he thinks it's important to be able to stand up for yourself. Zedekiah says that when she has enough strength, they can take up fencing, because he believes that she will quickly reach the level of these mediocrities. The girl says that this is great because he knows how to fence and will even teach her, and therefore considers this to be noble because he can be proud of himself, and then tells her to leave her alone. The gentleman asks where she is going, and the lady replies that she is going away from him. The Duke asks the assistant what the hell he did wrong, and Bernard says he doesn't know because he didn't understand either. The master thinks she's angry because he decided to teach her and suggests that maybe she's not interested in that at all, or maybe he should have made it clear that she can rely on him. The man understands that no matter how he looks at it, she was clearly unhappy, but this is not what he would like. Zedekiah tells the knights that they take good care of their weapons and thinks that the count has clearly not been stingy with them. The knight replies that it is all thanks to their mistress Lady Aiden because she sold all her dresses to buy them weapons. Hearing this, the gentleman understood why she was angry and believed that she cared so much about the knights. And unlike the count, who was not interested in military affairs, she even sold her dresses to have new swords. The Duke thought about who had pulled his tongue because he had no idea how much he had insulted her, but as far as he remembered, the lady had a very refined taste, and he wondered if she was no longer interested in fashion, and therefore believed that this was his chance to prove to her that he could be relied upon. Zedekiah tells Bernard to send the message to the capital immediately and stock up on everything exactly as he says. The maid tells the lady that the count has arrived, and he of course said that he would be soon, but she did not expect it to be so soon. The father hugged his daughter and said that it was a blessing that she was okay, because he understood that everything could have turned out much worse, and then asked if she was in any pain. The baby explains that everything is fine and she is okay, and the father thanks Duke Haint. Zedekiah claims that there is no need to thank him because he simply happened to be in the right place at the right time. The Count says that he is still extremely grateful to him and to Duke Luerk too, because he was told that he suffered while defending the Rucci, and asks if this is true. The fair-haired gentleman explains that Lady Aiden has taken good care of him. The father says that he is glad that his daughter has not abandoned her savior, and therefore offers to make herself at home. The lady asks the saleswoman if they have fabric in Marsala. She replies that she is sorry because due to the large number of orders, they have some shortage, and in other stores the situation is no better. The color he is interested in is not available, and then asks, "What about this shade?" The girl claims that it is an old-fashioned pattern and asks who wears something like that these days. Mrs. Clarence says she agrees, but in their case the color is right. The ladies claim that the Marsala and other good fabrics are sold out, and judging by the same picture, everywhere it is, as if someone just swept everything clean. The lady suggests that they not be angry because perhaps they just don't know something. But if someone bought the fabric without knowing its value, then she won't stand aside. The maid offers the mistress to go with her, and the lady asks in surprise what is happening and where she is taking her. Rose says that she will know when she sees, and then opens the room in which there were many decorations and dresses. The lady says that she ordered the dresses to be sold and asks if she didn't get rid of the things. The girl assumes that it looks like her father brought her a new wardrobe, and the maid reports that it was all done by His Grace the Duke of Hint. The gentleman asks the lady if she likes it, and she wonders what the hell he's doing. He explains that he suspects that she's still angry, and that's why he asks for forgiveness, because he didn't know that the knightly order meant so much to her. Hearing this, the main character thought that he meant Sitora, and thought that it couldn't be that the Duke was talking about Sitora knights, because she didn't understand how he knew about this. Zedekiah explains that he means that she sold her dresses to buy equipment because it was ugly of him to speak like that about other people's knights, and keeps silent about the fact that he assessed the level of training of warriors in front of their lady, and therefore believes that he was terrible. The girl asks why he decided to talk about this, and the gentleman wonders if she was angry because of his words about the skills of Count Aiden's knights. Rucci asks if this is his apology. He replies that it is, but if he got it all wrong, he asks what made her angry. The little girl looked at him and thought that he was frowning again, and she really thought that he was unlucky with her, and it really sounded like he had hurt her pride by offering her fencing lessons. The girl understands that she won't be able to say this, and besides, his apologies were quite sweet, and then she apologizes because she didn't know that it would bother him, and she's not angry at all, and she sold the dresses because she wanted to, because she didn't like them anymore. Rusifella says that although his concern for the girl he will divorce after marriage makes her think that he is not such a bad guy, hearing this, the man does not understand why she laughs and believes that he was wrong then, but does not know why she says that she is tired of dresses, and therefore it is difficult for him to understand the course of her thoughts. The Duke says that he thinks he is free until tomorrow's departure to the capital, and at this time the young lady remembered that she heard that the Duke would accompany the collet, and they would both leave, and in the end she lets the scoundrel go. The main character thought about it. As for revenge, her sword skills in this matter leave much to be desired, and she has not yet come up with another way, but her heart has doubted too often lately. Rushi understands that she had no choice but to trust him in that situation, and then says that it means he racked his brains in vain. She feels sorry, and at that time she thought that the situation really was hopeless, and therefore forgive herself for this weakness. The lady reflects on the fact that she does not need help, because she herself can take revenge on the Khalit. The little girl thinks that she, of course, understands everything, that she doesn't have very good taste, as Annika said, because to her all the dresses look alike, like sheep in a herd. And yet she put on the outfit he gave her, but she doesn't understand why he leaves without saying a word, and therefore thinks that the dress is wrong. The father says that the castle has finally calmed down because the noisy duet has left them, and the daughter asks if she can return to the capital, and at that time she thought that she will not be able to take revenge while here. The girl assures that she is already feeling better and reflects on the fact that she will not lose her composure even when meeting the bastard face to face. Father says that Rusi did as her heart tells her, and the lady thought that although she doesn't have a clear plan yet, she must move forward because she believes that through her efforts he will lose everything, just like Estelle lost it. Luerk says that his generous gift caused a storm of indignation among the capital's fashionistas, and therefore believes that it seems that he is very sensitive to Lady Aiden. Zedekiah tells him not only that he names his company, and then asks how he dares to talk about his bride, and then claims that their relationship is not that close. The fair-haired guy says that he is always amazed by his directness, and the gentleman says that he, however, lacks courage because Lady Aiden interested him. The Duke asks in surprise what he is talking about, and the man replies that she stands out. Zedekiah asks why he needs to know about his interest in the lady, and wonders if he finds his behavior too insolent. Halit thinks that he should keep this in mind because this is what polite people do, and the gentleman claims that it would be impolite if he did not disturb the silence. And he wonders what he was counting on when he said such things, because he is heading to the capital to clarify everything, and he seems to have carried out all his intentional plans. The Duke claims that he came here because he missed the lady and asks if that means he has such an interest. Halit reminds that, as he said earlier, she is unusual, and that is why he is attracted to such people, because they will do everything to survive in a hopeless situation. And this is exactly the kind of Lady Aiden is, and her personality is quite close to Estelle, and he really liked her. Zedekiah says that he did not expect to hear this name from his lips, and the man explains that this is why he is curious about the Count's daughter. The Duke claims that he doesn't know what nonsense he's talking about, but wonders if that's really the only reason he got into his carriage. Halit. It is reported that as he thought he was hurt by his words, because he thinks so much about Estelle, and he wonders if this is just a night of the destroyed empire. The Duke says that Estelle, standing like a star in the dark sky, would feel disgusted by the fact that his thoughts are occupied with her because he knew her like no one else, and then turns to the cabman and orders him to stop the carriage because the Duke of Luerk is getting out. Zedekiah believes that they are somewhat far from the capital, but given their relationship, he doubts that they will be able to breathe the same air for so long and hope for his understanding. Luerk says that he heard a fascinating story about the betrayal of the newly minted lieutenant and therefore does not understand why Estelle hates him, and as a duke he is not allowed to throw around rudeness, and then asks if in this way he wants to bring out his emotions. The gentleman says that although he is rather worried that this knight thought about him even in a negative way, and asks if this is so, and the fair-haired gentleman asks to allow him to deviate and gets out of the carriage. Zedekiah was left alone. He thought that this man was a disgusting person and did not understand how he dared to stutter about her, but to hell with him because she came out to say goodbye in a dress that, as he had assumed, incredibly suited her, and at that time did not understand why this was imprinted in his memory. The lady asks if they have heard the latest news because that lady is returning to the capital, and it is simply amazing how she has the conscience to show herself to people with such problems, because first there is the palace lake and then the balcony, and she suggests that perhaps the tower will be her victim next time. The lady says that Rusifela Aden is also called Ishtar Yanskara, and this is the name given to her by His Majesty, and then he tells Lady Rain to be careful in her statements because he believes that tea drinking is not the place for evil gossip. Madame suggests leaving this between them but not slandering others in the future. The ladies say that Madame Lauer is very wise and the complete opposite of Rusifela Aden. Hearing this, the lady says that they flatter her and thought that they are idiot aristocrats who rinse other people's bones at any convenient opportunity, and this will never change. And when she first met Lady Aden, it was exactly the same, and she still remembers those gossips. The gentleman gossiped that this family had stumbled upon a mine of precious stones and moved to the capital, and they believed that they had been incredibly lucky since the late Countess had refused the Duke himself, giving preference to the poor Count. The lady understands that she does not remember much, but that day is etched in her memory because it was her first day in the palace when she first appeared. Everyone held their breath, and then they nicknamed her Ishtar Yansgara, and this is the name that haunts her to this day. The lady says that she has thought about it and asks if she can invite Lady Aden to the next tea party because soon she will be a duchess, and when living side by side sometimes they need each other's help, and the Lauer family garden is beautiful even in winter. Bernard tells the gentleman that everything is as he said, because it is unlikely that the birthplace is only on one side, and there is a mountain nearby with similar properties also known as the Twin Mountain. Zedekiah asks if this means that the Count is hiding a better mine on another mountain, and then says that on the day he was looking for the lady, he accidentally found this stone, and understands that one stone of this size is enough to support half of the Baron's estate, and then asks if it could be that the Crown Prince is hiding jewels on the Count's land. Bernard thinks that this is impossible because the Crown Prince is one of those who is greedy for money, and then asks if he himself knows this. The gentleman agrees with him and reflects that if the prince is not hiding the stones, then the Count himself is hiding them from the family of Idris, and Fred Idris would not miss the opportunity to profit, and without a doubt this is a secret even for the one who lived the Count's way to the top, since he is one of those people whose presence on the prince's side is deceptive. A bunch of idiots blinded by their own vanity know which place is the safest and which is the most dangerous. Zedekiah believes that if the defense is increased, it will require more space, which is why the Count did not exterminate the monsters, and the closets are bulging with skeletons, both fathers and daughters. The Duke thought that unlike the quiet Count Idina's lady loves to attract attention, and she is so beautiful that her name is Ishtar Yanskara, and her family has no more influence than the others, but she likes to be cheeky and dress provocatively, and there were even rumors about her affair with the Crown Prince. The gentleman suggests that maybe this is a screen to divert attention from the family and a theatrical performance to hide the mine, and then asks if the informants are reliable because what is written simply does not fit into the mind that they would abandon their child and attempt suicide. Zedekiah reflects on the fact that using his daughter as a tool in a hopeless situation, and in principle he can understand this, since he tried to cope completely by running away from his helpless daughter, and it is unlikely that his actions were dictated by paternal love, and most likely the Count was simply fulfilling his duties as an aristocrat. The man understands that he must have feigned affection, and the lady sensing the lie behaved as if every day was her last, and recklessness became her way of surviving. The Duke asks how deep her wound is, and then claims that she has been overcoming it alone so far. Bernard thought that the gentleman should set the pace because he could not keep up with his conclusions. The king turns to his son and calls him a brat, and then asks if he even understands the gravity of his sin. Tamir explains that he wanted to scare her, and in fact, he didn't know that everything would end so badly, and then asks if it wasn't he who sent the Luark to the Duke. His Majesty orders him to close the door and asks if what happened is not a direct consequence of his actions, and then asks what the Luark has to do with it. The prince tells his father that he does not know, and Lady Aden kicked his leg, and in fact, at the autumn banquet she cursed him and kicked and dared to touch the imperial family. The king asks in surprise how he can believe his words, and Tamir suggests asking Lady Aden about this because he tried to show her the wealth of the ruling family and did not want to make a scandal out of it, so he kept silent. His Majesty claims that whatever he says his sin is unforgivable. The prince, when he saw the count, says that he apologizes to him and asks him to forgive him because due to his immaturity he allowed all this to happen, and then claims that he did not want the death of the knights and merchants and that it was an accident. Count Aden informs His Highness that everything is fine because his daughter was not harmed. The king says that he does not want to make this public, but his son's sin is terrible, and to think that it was not good for his daughter's reputation, and asks if she is engaged to Duke Khaitan. His Majesty suggests leaving this in the past and telling his daughter about it when he returns. The king asks Tamir if he understands what he has done. The prince replies that the imperial family should not touch the people of another aristocrat because if the upper classes lose confidence in the current government, internal conflicts may begin, and this is his sin. The father claims that his sin was in something else, and then reports that after checking, everyone did not claim that it was the hands of someone from the imperial family. But his greatest act was that he made it clear to everyone who was the initiator. His Majesty reports that he knows that Count Aden is his subject, but he is turning him into his enemy. The prince asks if he is talking about Count Aden, and then explains that he is from the same family as his mother, and he is his distant relative, and then asks how he can think of him as an enemy, and thinks that even if he turns against him, it is not a big deal. The king informs his son that from today he is relieved of his assigned duties because he will not be freed from responsibility even by apologizing, and if in the future something happens to Lady Aden, he will blame only him. The father tells him not to shake because he will not remove him from his position. After all, he is his own son. The maid greets the lady who has come to the house of the Marquis Loera family. She says that her name is Jenny, and from now on she is at her disposal, and then she offers to follow her. The main character was surprised, and she became interested in what the family of a large landowner in the Eastern Empire finds itself on the size of the property, and despite the fact that now it is winter, everything around is blooming in riotous color, and it seems like summer does not even think of leaving this place. The ladies ask in surprise if this is Lady Aden, and wonder if she received the letter because they think that this cannot be, because everyone knows about their strained relationship with Lady Lower, and such a person would never receive an invitation. Miss says that she is not even a child to pretend to be lost, and thinks that she is probably plotting against Lady Lower. Ruchi tells the ladies that they are right, and Lady Lower has kindly invited her. The lady says that there is clearly not enough chair at the table because the last place is for Lady Lower, and therefore asks not to take it. Hearing this, the main character thought that she was only following Madame Helen's advice because she said that they would want to kill her confidence from the very beginning to unite, and would never let her near the table, deliberately putting her in an awkward situation. Ruchi puts the invitation on the table and says that it is strange because someone invited but did not even assign a seat, and she is sure that Lady Lower could not have done this on purpose. The woman says that this is the seal of the Marquis and that she should not raise her voice at them, but the main character claims that in any case she thinks that they are mistaken. The lady says that she made an unforgivable mistake because she should have prepared everything in advance, but she discovered a broken leg on the chair and asked for a replacement. Lower explains that she would like to make a good impression and therefore asks for forgiveness for her rudeness, then says that her name is Clarence Lower and thanks her for coming. The girl realized that it was Lady Lower, so who was in control of this snake tangle at the last ball? The lady suggests that she change seats and then says that since everyone has come, it means it's time for tea. At this time, the young lady realized that it seemed that her chair was the same as Lady Lower's, and was completely different from the chairs of other ladies, and therefore understood that she had planned something because Madame Helene had said that she did not like her. Rusi looked at the lady and thought that she was cute, but even though the events were tiring, she had to admit that she was charming, and did not understand how a despising person could look at the object of his hatred with such a soft smile. The young lady thinks that envy can't just disappear in a woman. The lady says that she has been constantly looking at the dress of the lady candy maker lately, and then asks where she bought such beautiful earrings. Hearing these conversations, the main character thought that this was only the beginning, because they were busy piling on each other, and she remembered that Madame Helene had even retold this, and therefore she thought that it was better to keep quiet for now. Rusi realizes that they are ignoring her and then looks at the cup of tea and thinks that no one here would think of adding poison, since she is not the only one who drinks this tea. When the lady decided to drink tea, then she saw the surprised looks of the madam and does not understand what is wrong with them and thinks that maybe she behaved incorrectly. Clarence tells the maid to pour some tea for Lady Aiden. Hearing this, the main character does not understand why she turned to the maid assigned to her and assumes that this is a new kind of bullying. And probably the whole point is that she does not really understand tea blends. And when Clarence drank the tea, she then spat it out. The ladies asked in surprise if everything was okay with her, and the lady asked for forgiveness and then explained that she had prepared a very special tea and therefore suggested not to worry about it. Rusi realized that judging by everything this collection was intended for her and not on Clarence's orders because she couldn't understand whether this taste was so disgustingly unbearable for a lady. The girl thinks that it was slightly spicy, just like the grass that she constantly ate as a child and made other children sick, and she understands that if it were possible she would continue to drink it, but she is not attracted to the idea of becoming someone who has a strange character but also taste. Miss asks the lady if she has heard the news about the Crown Prince, and then reports that His Majesty has suspended the heir from work, and if she is not mistaken, this happened a few days ago, because then he had only just been suspended. Hearing this, the main character was surprised because she was curious why he was removed. Clarence asks the girl if she likes their dessert. She says that she likes it very much and thanks for her concern. Lower says that soon His Majesty will have mercy and asks if this is true. Rusi knows that she does not allow her to fall out of the conversation and suddenly asks her opinion because she has no idea why she invited her. The lady realizes that her intentions are still unclear, and Clarence says that the capital is fertile ground for rumors to flourish and asks if that is true. Rusi agrees with her and says that there are as many gossips as there are people, and at that time she thought that, contrary to her expectations, the tea party was going quite smoothly because she didn't think that she would hear about the Crown Prince, although who knows, maybe his mention is part of their plan. The main character understands that now she knows why ladies love social events and how they get the necessary information about everyone and everything, because she understands that such gatherings are very useful, because she believes that at all times information is both an opportunity and a weapon. The maid approaches Lady Clarence and tells her that she has urgent news for her. The mistress asks the lady if she can ask them for a favor, and then tells her that it seems that her elder brother has left the palace with a guest and will be home soon, and they want to meet them and asks if they don't mind. The young lady agreed, and they began to get excited about the upcoming meeting with the Marquise. Rushi looked at the lady and does not understand what is wrong and why she has such an expression on her face, and she is also interested in who he will come with because she is waiting impatiently and assumes that maybe it is an honored guest. The gentleman says that then the thief instantly fell under his pressure and he immediately cut off his hands because according to the law, this is what is done to those who are caught stealing 3 times. The main character realized that the guest was none other than Halit, and she does not understand what a person who is not interested in such meetings is doing here. The gentleman says that not a fly can fly past him, so he was immediately caught, and the stolen necklace turned out to be a family heirloom of the Viscount, having historical value as an item of the 33rd Emperor of Yansgar. Lady Aiden thought that the storyteller should have just said hello and left, and she wondered when he would finish this verbal diarrhea, since she understood that this was an endless, tasteless story about heroic adventures. The girl noticed that in the meantime Lady Clarence had not uttered a word since his appearance, although she had recently been actively involved in the conversation. Rusi doesn't understand why the owner is behaving so strangely and only occasionally looks at this rascal, and she no longer has any sweet smiles, and therefore she is interested in what is going on in her head. Suddenly the girl noticed that Halit was staring at her, and she became curious why he was behaving like that. Clarence says that she heard that there was a similar treasure in Poland, and it seems it is called Astra, and this necklace fulfilled a wish, and when the country was destroyed, it collapsed, and she thinks that it looks like a miracle because it collapsed along with the country. Halit says that, to be precise, on the day of the fall of the altar, the emperor reached the treasury and saw that the necklace was broken, and then claims that this is just a legend, and if it really fulfilled wishes, the state would be intact. Hearing this, the main character does not understand why he speaks about it so casually, and she knows that his homeland has been erased and their country has perished. The gentleman suggests that they not talk about sad things and thinks that it would be better to return to the story with the Viscount's necklace. The Ulsha has any other treasures besides the necklace because she heard that they had a sword. Halit explains that there was no treasure more valuable than Inanna, and there was a sword, but there are several like it in Yansgar. The lady asks what then made it so special. The man explains that he was forged from the steel of Mount Yanas, and unlike the rich and powerful Yansgar Ulsha, was weak and owned only one such sword, and says that His Majesty gave this sword to him, and if they are interested, then next time he will show it to them. The main character reflects on the fact that this sword was forged by the Knights of Sitora, and when she became the leader, Fabian, the father of King Arendt, gave it to her, and she does not understand why the Khalit had her sword. Miss happily says that she is happy because Duke Luerk is actually inviting them to his place, and the man says that he is always glad to see such beautiful ladies, and they think that they are not comfortable with such meetings. So the invitation is extremely unexpected but incredibly pleasant. The gentleman says that given his past, he doubts that he is suitable for such events. The lady says that what difference does it make that he comes from a destroyed country, because now he belongs to the Yansgar, and therefore he believes that he is their man, and the best proof is the award of His Majesty. Rusi says that it is touching, and he must be right because there are no difficulties. Halit agrees with her and says that she is not stupid like that woman, and he is talking about that owner of the sword. Lower wonders if he means Ishtar Olshi, and the man claims that it is so funny and asks why everyone is called Ishtat. Clarence says that in the end she did not give in to His Majesty, but fought madly, and it was right that the Duke beheaded her. Hearing this, the main character thought that it was disgusting, and said that therefore women should not take on men's affairs, and then turns to Halit and asks what he thinks. Rusi understands that he saw this while he was on her side and how much effort she put in, and how persistent she was, and therefore would like to hear no. The Duke says that he completely agrees because he believes that she should not have touched the sword. The main character does not understand what he meant by saying that she should not have touched the sword, and he explains that he only wanted to say that she should not have entered the path of a knight, because it would have been better if she had known about the role that was destined for her. Halit says that, for example, her life as a lady is sweet and beautiful, and then asks if a woman can defend the country as a knight, and says that from this point of view, Estelle was stupid. The man says that even though Olsha's position was wrong, Estelle rejected it until the very end because he does not understand why she did such a terrible thing. Ruchi understood what he was thinking standing side by side with her because he hated her so much, and she believed that they were closer than anyone else in the whole world. Rusifella smiled and said that apparently the Khalit does not know the feeling of shame, and she cannot stand it, and then she claims that he is the one who betrayed his homeland and turned away from the knightly oath, and then asks if this is how he perceives the country in which he lives. The girl says that if Yansgar loses in a war against someone, he will hand her over as he did earlier. The lady screams and asks Lady Aiden how she can talk like that about the future of their country, and then says that she heard about her bad manners but had no idea that everything was so bad, and therefore offers to explain herself immediately. Halit is told that he does not know why she has a grudge against him, but the sun will never set over Yansgar. Rusi claims that the girl swore allegiance to her country like all knights, but according to him, if a woman takes up a sword, she immediately retreats and asks if that is true, and then claims that his judgments are too hasty. Luerk asks Milady if she knows how many people have died because of her belief and resistance to what contradicted that delusion. The man claims that if only she had not fought to the last, how many lives would have been saved, and asks about this and then says that the damage would have been minimized, and therefore his opinion will not change. The Duke says that he never regretted killing his commander, Estelle. The main character thought about what he was saying, and it was so sweet and unexpected that she heard his thoughts in such a formulation. The Marquis claims that her ladyship knows nothing about this, and therefore suggests moving away from the tired story of the vanished country. At this time, the Duke comes to them and says that apparently he does not know the feeling of shame, and then claims that the main character is not him. Halit asks him lightly what brought him here, and the prince explains that he is here to see the book return. His bride and its only copy is in the library of the Marquis of Loire. His Majesty explains that at first glance this novel seems like ordinary fiction, but it completely breaks stereotypes.